Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 435. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I am Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. Me am the Batmite of Zer and R. So says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of You-Know.
How's it going, eh?
On this episode, we're going to start chatting about the books that have been coming out, the new releases from DC, and the new status quo changes. Our big fix, and please look at the show notes of this because we don't want to ruin anything for you. Our big fix is going to be talking about the new things that's going on about Batman, new things going on with Superman. We talk about the Omega Men, and through a listener voicemail, we talk about Batmite and Bizarro #1. So take a look at the show notes to make sure that we're not spoiling any books for you, but we're going to obviously talk about Batman, Detective Comics, Catwoman, Action Comics, and Superman, or Batman, Superman. I always reverse the two. And I think that covered everything that we talked about on this episode in that. But just double check the show notes just to be sure. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network, the League of Comic Book Podcasts, the InfiniteComics.com Podcast Partnership. And of course, sponsoring this episode, Jim, is DCBService.com. What can you tell us?
Oh, God. As always, they've got the great bundles, 50% off, the new titles, the recurring titles, all of that great stuff. You got to check that out. But something else they're doing really cool that I want to make sure people are aware of. They're taking the DVD, Blu-ray sets of some of the more popular animated movies, and they're pairing them up with the hardcover editions of the original source documentation. For example, Death of Superman, they're doing 35% off. Blu-ray, DVD, as well as a hardcover copy of the actual story itself. DCBS price, $17.54. This month, they're doing 6 different books and animated series along with that. You can get them individually, each one only $17.54 for the books and the DVDs, or you can get a massive collection where they're taking all 6 together. Again, DCBS savings, $94.89. The books we're talking, as I said, Death of Superman, Batman Black and White, the Batman Year One, Justice League Origin, JLA Earth 2, Wonder Woman, Gods and Mortals. These are some really classic stories that were turned into wonderful animated movies. You're getting the best of both worlds together. Outstanding. Thank you. Thank you, DCBS.
Over at InStockTrades.com, I know I always shout out the deals of the week, and there's 2 that I want to shout out for you because they're amazing. First of all, the Absolute Transmetropolitan hardcover. If you haven't read Transmetropolitan, I can't recommend it highly enough. It's Warren Ellis. It's just beautiful artwork throughout the whole book. That is a 50% off hardcover, only $62.50. So if you haven't been getting those absolute editions, it's the way to read Transmet, honestly. It's really cool. Batgirl, Volume 1, the current Batgirl series. The first volume hardcover of that is 50% off, only $12.49. This is the new Batgirl that they switched out. It's the Batgirl of Burnside. So it's the first volume of that. But they've also got under latest releases, and I'm glad that they're keeping so many of these classic stories in print. They have a new trade paperback edition of Batman Cataclysm. That one's 42% off, just released, only $17.39. They also have the original Nightwing series, Volume 2, Rough Justice. 42% off, only $11.59. It's great if there's books that you've been missing. And there's a Vertigo series, actually Bodies, which I really enjoyed. 42% off, $9.85. So if you've been looking to read some of these books, it's a great way to get a hold of them at discounted prices. And I do encourage you to bundle those together because orders of $50 or more give you free shipping. And that's InStockTrades.com. James, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
We am not talking comics.
You have no idea how tempted I was to try to speak in Bizarro speak, but I can't pull that off.
You cannot pull it off.
Exactly. You're going to give me a headache, man.
Let's not talk comics.
You filthy criminals.
So, Jim, here we are post-Convergence, and it's funny, I didn't know what post-Convergence was going to be like. I think I was very focused on the fact that they were launching a lot of new series, that I didn't realize the scope and scale of the status quo changes as well. It really is, it's not a relaunching of the universe, but it is, a drastic change. It's a shift. It's exciting. For me, these last 2 weeks of reading have been mind-blowing. Like, for as much as I enjoyed Convergence, post-Convergence has taken it and kicked it up to 20. You know, if I would say, like, I was really enjoying the Convergence event, especially as it built, and it got up to an 11 for me, this is so far beyond that. I've really enjoyed this sense of new without it being, and this is a big thing, I like status quo changes where everything feels organic, like events naturally bled into this. So it's not, we dropped your hero now and now they're doing this. I prefer it smoother like this. I love that Batman's story feels very organic. Superman's story feels very organic. These were events that built over time. We were left in a cliffhanger, and now we're in this place. And we've got great new series that are out there that seem to be adding a lot of diversity to the lineup. And when I say diversity, I mean, you know, like we've got different types of titles out there that we've had in a while. There's some comedy, there's some straight up action, there's some drama, there's, you know, really, and there's those mishmashes that are all those in between. I'm really enjoying my reading. This has also motivated me with Convergence coming up to get caught up on a lot of series that I was stockpiling just because of time. And there's books that haven't been on my radar that are again. I'll give you a great example right off the starting at Lobo. Lobo was one of those. I was never a big Lobo fan, and let me clarify this. I hadn't read a lot of Lobo, so my Lobo experience was always Lobo and crossovers. So I like Lobo. I like the concept of it. Anytime he'd been in a crossover, I enjoyed what he brought to the table, but I never read enough solo Lobo to be a big Lobo fan. So this new series came out. I read the first issue. We talked about it on the show. I really liked it, and due to time, it was just one of those books that got stockpiled. Well, I got caught up on this baby right before Convergence, and then read the new issue when it came out. I am so, like, on board this cool series right now with everything they're doing with Lobo. I love the mixture of looking into his past and present day with what's going on, and I like the way that they're doing it in pieces. It's kind of like what they do in Arrow, you know, as far as we get those flashbacks in every single one, and it's like kind of the right way to tell Lobo's story, that I'm very into this Lobo. So, which I didn't expect to start off ranting about Lobo, but it's something that Convergence as an event, it kind of gave me a point where I'm like, okay, I really want to get caught up on the main DC universe and be ready for post-Convergence. So I got myself all caught up on everything, and I'm finding a lot here that I'm enjoying. There's some series that I'm going to miss that they've canceled, but the excitement for the new books and the new status quo are so outweighing all of that I'm all on board. And these past 2 weeks have just been a pure reading joy. But what's it been like for you?
It's actually, we have a lot of similarities in some of the stuff we're going on. And it's funny you mentioned Lobo because we hadn't planned on talking Lobo, but Lobo is one of those titles that, for me, it was on the consideration for chopping block. You know, and it wasn't even a negative statement against the book or anything like that. I was just like, well, you know, I can thin the herd a little bit, you know, with budgeting issues and whatnot. I'm always looking at that. I'm like, books I could get rid of that. And I was stockpiling it. So with the whole post-Convergence stuff, I was trying to get caught up on all the books that were continuing. Those are my priorities. Stockpile the titles continuing, and Lobo being one of them. So I got caught up completely with Lobo going. And by then, I'm like, hey, this is a pretty cool title. And then when the new one came out, I was like, man, I'm really digging this book.
Yeah, Lobo it did a complete 180 for me, and it really is because I didn't have time to read it. So I'm where you're at, like. And your comments kind of like, I don't know. You know, I wasn't excited to read it at all. We enjoyed talking about the first issue of it, so I don't know what got me in that place. I think it was just that I stockpiled it for so long. Cullen Bunn, gotta give kudos to the writing. Also, the art team, which I'm drawing a blank on at the moment. I don't have it in front of me, so I have apologies. It is a beautiful book. It is a very well-written book. It's exciting, and it is something that, for anybody listening to this, I encourage you to give it a few issues, because you've really got to see the background story, his history, flesh out, as well as the current present continuity for him. It's a really well-developed book, and it was a surprise for me. I'm shocked that I'm starting off, because we want to jump to Batman really bad, but just because it was one of those books that really struck me as being an amazing and fun read, Lobo is right up there. There's a great guest appearance by Superman in the series as it goes on, but to me, the highlight of the book has been his interaction with humans. he has had, I don't know what you want to call them, a sort of a team that he was working with, and It's such a brilliant story that I'm all in on Lobo. And if you had told me at the beginning of this series I was going to be saying that, I would have been laughing at you. Because I've been like, I'll probably like it, but I don't see myself loving Lobo. Lobo's a sleeper hit for me right now.
Yeah, right now Lobo's a sleeper hit, and it's you talked about just the evolution or the dramatic changes in characters, but nothing felt forced on me. Nothing felt like I was dropped off a cliff. Everything progressed throughout the story, and even though post Convergence we have some major changes going on in some of these titles, it's all just a nice natural evolution. And for me, this is the kind of way I want to see change. It's told within story. Yeah, the Convergence, kind of gave us that nice break, and there's a lot of stuff that happened, but it was all told within the different titles. The reason we don't have Bruce Wayne as Batman was told in the titles. We now have the new the new Bat robot, Jim Gordon Batman going on. It's all told through the title, throughout the growth and evolution of a character. And I was like, this is some really cool stuff. Post-Convergence, I'm extremely happy with where these titles are going because it's just a nice continuation. I haven't had, with all the titles so far that I've read, I really haven't had to go back and reread the previous issues. Mm-hmm. Whether it was Action, Batman, Detective, any of the Green Arrow, any of the titles that, Justice League, all of those. Just continued right through. Everything's flowing nicely. There was no going on, so you get that great flow through. So I'm very happy, very excited with what's going on here.
Did you read all the sneak peeks, either in the back of the issues or separately? Okay, I do encourage anybody listening to this. You can get them free on Comixology if you didn't get the issues that have the sneak peeks. If you go on Comixology, you can get them for free. They have all of them, the various sneak peeks, with the exception of the stuff revolving around Batman, Superman, and Justice League. There are, I think it's Action, Batman, and Justice League's sneak peek are the ones that came in that Divergence issue of Free Comic Book Day. The rest of them, though, are all material that lead into or set up the issues right now. So for those of you that are like, hey, I'm interested in trying this book, is this a good jump-on point for me? I encourage you to download the sneak peek. It's free. It'll give you, it's a story that leads into it. So they're not like, a few pages taken from the issue and then you're going to go buy the issue and have to read them again. It's not that. I actually applaud them for that because I thought that's what they were going to do. Yeah. So at first I was like, kind of like, I'm not going to bother reading them. I'm just going to read the issue. Then I started to read some of the issues and I'm like, wait. I'm like missing something. I'm missing a little piece here and it's in the sneak peek. So I encourage everybody listening to read those sneak peeks because I applaud DC for doing this. I don't find that annoying at all. I love that those were not throwaways. I love that they are actual extra issue content and they're original. And the Secret Six one is brilliant, by the way. But just if I got to throw out one. I guess I thought that was going to be part of the next issue as well. I love that all of this stuff, all of the material, with the exception of the three that I mentioned, is all new material. It's all material either leading into the issue or adding something to the next issue of those particular books. That was a really good choice.
Yeah, I realized those were brand new content when it was the Action Comics and the Batman titles. When I was sitting there going, wait a minute, I thought those were going to be the first couple pages because those are the sneak peeks I really remembered. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, those aren't this. Oh man! Oh, cool. So I'm co-signing with you on the neatness factor that they gave us original content and it actually was there. But also kudos to them for putting it out there for free, so you can actually see this stuff. And if you didn't get the Convergence titles, if you didn't get that stuff, you can actually pick it up and see, and so there's no confusion.
Yeah, and it's also a great way to see which of these titles you want to try. And I really encourage, listeners, if you're like, I'm interested in trying some of these new DC books, it's a great way to just get a taste of them. I was with you, though, when I think of sneak peeks traditionally, they're always in the back of the book. There are a few pages of the actual title. So I'm very dismissive of them because, in my case, I know what books I'm interested in. I'm usually just going to get the book. So I'd rather just read it all together with the rest of the book. So I was assuming that's what these were, especially when the first couple were the Divergence ones. They were from that Free Comic Book Day issue. I'm like, oh, they're just doing this. What a pleasant surprise. That first of all, that Divergence content was all original, but also that all of these were original, and I really applaud them. Let's go, because you and I are going to be chomping at the bit if we don't start talking about this. Let's go right away to talk about our new Batman issue. The creative team is Scott Snyder as the writer, Greg Capello as pencils, Danny Mickey on inks, FCO Placencia colors, Steve Wan's letters, Capello, Mickey, and Placencia on the cover, Sean Murphy and Matt Hollingsworth on the Joker's 75th anniversary cover, Rebecca Taylor, associate editor, Mark Doyle, editor, Batman, of course, created by Bob Kane. Oof. Apologies for any name butchery, first of all. I didn't know. When I walked in, I was excited for this story. I didn't know where I was going to be on it, though, because I'm a big Bruce Wayne fan, and we had him taken out, a few years ago when basically the whole Final Crisis thing happened. I'm like, oh, we're taking Bruce out again, and we're putting somebody else in. How am I going to feel about that? Oh my gosh, do I love this story. I needed the issue, I think 41. I was into it, and I mean, you and I talked about it previously from the Divergence preview, and I was excited for that. That looked cool to me. But I wasn't, blown away, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. This issue blew me away.
Yeah.
Big time. And everything
time.
Surrounding afterwards is a compliment to all the other creative teams working on Batman and Superman as well. They're really doing a bang-up job of making this incredibly interesting. I love that some of the jokes we were making about the suit, like the bunny ears and that kind of stuff, is in this, that they're analyzing it that way. The other thing I completely adored, when you got Jim Gordon talking about, and Bullock talking about, the fact that sometimes you need to get out and you need to be on the beat and you need to, be walking the streets and you need to be that part of it. I love that there's a bat suit under it. I just think that's a great way to, hey, this is Batman, and every so often you need people to see the Batman look, quote unquote, the look. And I like that it's a thin suit that it makes sense would go under a big suit of armor, but it says Batman as well. That we have that way. That's a great way to handle, too. What if something happens to the suit of armor partway through battle or something? He needs to get out and, get on the feet and stuff like that and do that kind of thing. You should have something that says Batman underneath it. I like that they're playing off of Jim Gordon's age. That part of it really rings true for me. And that, he's had to change his lifestyle and all kinds of stuff like that in order to do this. This is something he's had to train to do. But let's jump to it because this is what you and I really want to get to. Bruce Wayne's alive. Bruce Wayne is alive. He's at the end of the issue. I don't care if that's behind and he's bearded. I want to know what's going on with him. Does he lose his memory? Is this a side effect of whatever allowed him to live or bring him back to life or keep living or whatever it is? I don't know. But Bruce Wayne's alive. I love the mystery of this. I don't care that it's been revealed right away. We all knew he was coming back. And I love that Snyder and crew do that. They don't waste your time. And Morrison did this well, too. Instead of playing around with the fact that, is he alive, is he not alive, we as fans all know he's coming back. They're like, you're right, he's coming back. Here, we'll prove it. Guess what? This is going to leave you with more questions than if we left it a mystery.
And it was beautifully played out because you get the opening of the issue where you get the guy sitting on the park bench.
Yes.
And then the last issue, you find out that guy sitting on the park bench, that's Bruce Wayne. Or it's still the question because the guy was like, Bruce Wayne? Question mark. So we do have to see if the guy answers yes or how he answers or any close up on the face, which to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if we never see that answer to that for a little bit. If next issue it jumps right in and it doesn't even go back to that, leave it still the mystery. I was happy and excited, and I was hooping and hollering throughout this whole issue. And then you get to the last page, I'm like, yes, I'm doing oh man, I'm pumped and excited, very happy. And just again, one simple page has me thinking off panel, especially with when you start thinking about the Batman Superman title, which I know we're going to be talking about in a little bit, but just who is he alive? Who knows? What's the deal?
Detective Comics.
1,000 questions flying through my head, and the big reveal, the big spoiler is still leading to more great story to come up. Beautiful job, well done, bravo.
The funny part is, though, it's left more questions than answers, which is always much more interesting. I love that Detective Comics is addressing this as well, with Bullock and Montoya.
Yeah.
I think, it's great that it's appearing all over the place, that people are aware that he's alive. I like that there's a question mark on what Alfred knows.
Oh, God, yeah.
Does Alfred know he's around or not? I don't know. In many ways, the question is Alfred more content? Does Alfred believe that he's alive, but he's happier that he's not on the radar? This could be the fact that he has amnesia. Does Bruce know who he is? I don't know. Those are the real questions there. I don't need to see the face to know right now that's Bruce Wayne. And I know you're like in the same boat I am, this is an incredibly cool mystery. I like this. This is what I liked about Nightfall when they did that. When you knew you were following Bruce at some point, you know, whether it's little teases or tidbits or whatever, it makes you more interested in the main story. Because you know that, like, okay, we haven't dumped the guy that brings us to the dance. We're going to give you parts about him along the way, while at the main time focusing on this very cool story with a character you love as much, in Jim Gordon. And I love the debate Gordon has in this with himself as far as, you know, my age. Can this be me? Will this fit into my own philosophy as far as what I should be doing, you know, as a police officer and, you know, what direction I'm going in? I like that and I'm going to be kind of bleeding over into a few of the books as we have this discussion because I don't know how you can't. I love that Gordon, in many ways, I love that they clarified here that the public is not going to know that Jim Gordon's Batman.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that play. Mm-hmm. You know, and that was something I was wondering about when they first started. Who knows? How many people know? The general public, what are they going to know? Mm-hmm. And again, it adds to the comment you made about the under bat suit needed because you got to protect the secret identity. There still is an air of mystery behind the bat. We know he's a prod. We know he's working with the Gotham PD. So everyone's assuming he's either a cop or a retired cop. You know, but no one's 100% certain who he is, what he's about. They know there's a guy in there. They know he's part of the police department. And I like the fact that that's been brought up multiple times, that what would Batman be like if he wasn't a vigilante operating outside the law, if he was an officer of the law? And I think that's, you know, again, it's stuff thinking about like trials, testimonies, things like that. Who is going to get called to the stand? Is this big, massive armor going to come in? Is it going to be in the bat suit? Is it going to be just testimony? How will that even be addressed in the comic? Because that's stuff that I think about off page. Every time Batman takes down a criminal, his defense attorney has some great defense. The fact that, hey, denied legal process here. That's a vigilante. It's not a cop, you know. And so now we have a cop actually doing the arrests. I think that's going to be some kind of a neat thing happening here.
I agree with you 100%. That part of this, I like that there's a transforming world going on here that doesn't just involve Jim Gordon and Batman itself. It involves everything touching it. And I am going to be bleeding over, so might as well just say we're going to talk about Detective Comics 2 and Superman Batman. I don't know how we can't talk about all this.
Yeah, I know.
Because it all goes together, and that's actually part of the joy of this. Like, I love that, like, Renee Montoya has been brought back as a prominent figure because of this, as Bullock's partner. I love that there's this sense of, I came back because Jim Gordon was considering taking this role. Because of that, I'm in the know. We're putting together a core Batman task force of people that know what's going on. We know the reality. We're going to support Batman, the new Batman, and this new initiative. It's going to be a very close-knit, tight core. That's it. I love that Nancy, Bullock's current partner, is one of the bad guys. That part is something that, like, it adds a little intrigue to the whole thing. So you got Bullock and Montoya back together, and Bullock knows she's in on this, which is a part you don't get that if you don't read the sneak preview. You got to read the sneak preview, but I love the way the sneak preview plays out into that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because, you know, it's weird with Bullock, you know, because he is just this great character. You know, he is. You know, I know guys who are Bullock, by the way. I know people who have that same style, who I could actually take any one of them and pluck them in this book, and it's that same personality. And it's one of those things that I love about how some of these writers will actually write some for the cops and just their mindset that some of them have. And Bullock's one of those characters where he's a character, but there's so much realism with him in how he looks at things, how he's approaching things. And some of those dialogues you talked about between him and Gordon about sometimes you got to get on the street. Sometimes you got to, you know, it's not about, you can't wear a body armor. You got to wear the trench coat. You got to be a cop. You got to be a beat cop. And just that mindset of, you know, you got to get, you know, feet on the ground. And I loved seeing Bullock just, you know, he was initially resistant of this whole thing, going, no, if I can't find Batman, put me on rotation, I'll do my job. and that was his mindset. I'm going to do my job. And I loved how they pulled him in. There was some really cool stuff going on, big story wise, but also these nice, just exploration of who these characters are, who Bullock is. He's not just the gruff detective that, has had a little bit of a shady past, has had a little bit of this, all the different ways he's been played in the past. You can see this guy is a true detective. He's a true cop.
One of the things that I really love is the switch in symbolism almost. Before you had the bat signal coming from the ground to the sky, now you've got Big Brother watching and the bat signal coming down on you. It's a different sort of philosophy and mentality, a different way of looking at it. And it matches the shift that, this is a Batman who is working with the corporation, working with the police department. It's a different sort of, and I think there's going to be a clash at some point due to that. There can't help but be a clash at some point because of that. And Gordon's going to have to make some really tough decisions in this role as far as, is he Batman or is he a police officer? And I think that's going to be, to me, one of the more interesting avenues explored in all this because of the people that he works with. Harvey's known to skirt the line from time to time. Renee Montoya's known to skirt the line from time to time. They do it for the right reasons because they believe there is, they believe in the law, they believe in the system, and they want to show the system works, which is what Jim Gordon wants as well. But they also know how corrupt and dangerous Gotham is, that you have to give a certain amount of latitude. You don't cross the line fully, you bend and stretch, kind of like a rubber band. You never want it to break, but you understand how that works. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays into these multiple series. I like that Detective seems to have more of a focus of, I saw in one review somewhere, somebody was mentioning that it has a very Gotham Central feel to it, kind of a throwback to that. I agree with that sentiment.
Oh, and completely.
I love that they're doing that. I love the writing and the artwork for that. But I like that it's Gotham Central without Gordon being taken out of it. It's Gotham Central didn't have, Batman was kind of a very background figure. In this case, Gordon's a part of it, but I do like the larger focus, I should say, on Harvey Bullock and Renee Montoya and Nancy, obviously the partner. I want to see where they continue to go with that.
Yeah, and I agree with you with how that Gotham Central feel, that Gotham Central kind of focus, Detective Comics. It's about, to me, it's more, they're focusing more on the police work side of this. And considering Batman is now a police officer, is an agent with the police, it makes sense that they're going to have the full team there. And I like how they're doing it, and they're differentiating between the two titles, which, and it's funny how you mentioned, though, with the symbolism of the bat signal, because I love the fact that they're already starting to throw out, people are already starting to say they don't know how they feel about that. And we saw that the Catwoman made a quick comment on it, and they made a couple in Batman and in Detectives where people have made comments about how it is looming up overhead. And there is that, you said it before, that Big Brother watching type of mindset. And that's part of the issue that's going to happen with this Batman, which does get, of course, you always start thinking, what happens when Bruce comes back? Are we going to get that confrontation between Bruce and Gordon? Are we going to get the battle of the bats? Or are we going to have something else happen where it'll make sense for Bruce to come back into the mantle? I don't know. And that's, again, these are kind of stuff that, from issue 1 has got me thinking off page. Mm-hmm. Has got me thinking about future stories. What about this? What about that? And I think that tells wonders about just how much I'm enjoying this, how much I'm into this from one issue. I'm already starting to think a year from now, 2 years from now, hey, what about this story? What about this kind of story? What about this? There's so many different variations. I've started thinking Bane. I so want to see Bane versus Robo Batman, just because it's Bane. He's got to break this bat as well. I want to see that fight. I want to see that confrontation. I want to see what happens there.
Am I the only one that my view of the suit of armor is so much different the second read through of this after I saw what was inside of it? Like, after I saw that suit inside there, I read this issue the second way through. I look at the armor totally differently now. The armor to me is the coolest thing in the world now. Whereas before, I liked the armor, but I was kind of like, the bunny ears thing and all that. I'm kind of like, I was into it for the story purposes, but I wasn't really into it. After I saw that he's got a bat suit inside there, it's funny how easy it is to switch me when you do it dramatically within the story. Because when that was done from the beat cop perspective, like I'm getting down to street level now, and I've got this suit for that purpose, I'm like, oh my gosh, this whole setup is the coolest thing ever. He's got a bat suit underneath, so like this suit of armor is like over that, and I'm like, it all of a sudden became like I want the toy of it. And I'm sorry, I really did. I'm not kidding you. I was like a little kid after I saw the bat suit inside it. And that was what it took for me. I needed that moment, and I saw that, and I saw it in story context, not the visual. It's in the story context of what he was doing there, because he had that taser gun and all that. You know, it was very much, he was coming out as Bat Cop. And it worked. It all worked in that moment. And I was like, wow, it looks great, because of the fact that it's a sleek suit that would fit inside an armor suit. And it's meant for the purpose of, there's sometimes where he has to get down to street level, has to get down to that one-on-one, and you would need an outfit for that. I just loved the premise. I loved that was in there. It was very Transformer-y kind of thing. To me, it was kind of like all of a sudden, like, not only do I want to be this Batman, I want to drive the suit of armor, whereas before I could have cared less. Other than the fact that I thought it was going to be a cool story, this issue turned a concept that I thought was good into a concept that was mind-blowing. And it was funny how content delivery, story delivery, it's one of those examples of, we talk about this a lot on the show, you got to give a story a chance before you make a judgment on it. I was in a different place with this story walking in. I knew it was Snyder and Capullo, and I was going to really dig it. I didn't know I was going to be blown away by it. This issue sold me.
Yeah, see,
it wasn't just the ending. It wasn't just the ending. It was throughout. I thought the reveal of the stealth suit, the street level suit underneath, stealth suit's probably not the right word, street level suit underneath, I thought was really great. That just added this whole other layer to it. Like it was kind of like they thought of everything, and it was very Jim Gordon in the presentation. I needed that too.
Yeah, see, I was always a fan of the armor, from Go, but I agree with seeing the Under Armour, seeing that, and the under costume was something that, I'll be honest, I didn't really think about it. I don't know why I didn't think about it, but just then when it was there, I'm like, oh, of course, it was one of those smack myself in the head. Of course they do something like that. And then you start looking at it, he's got the pistol harness, and again, he's a cop. He's going to have that. I like the fact that, and I'm expecting maybe eventually we'll see other modifications to it, but for right now, this was the initial go. But as he's going on down the line, he's going to increase what he's wearing. Maybe he has a rifle in there that we don't know about yet, or other tools or something like that. I see that, even the undersuit and the, adding more of a bat utility type belt, or even this, because you look at traditional police officers, you've got your belt with a bunch of different, cuffs, light, etc., and all the various other, equipment they'll need. I can see them expanding what he's got on his, and these are stuff that I was like, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, that's awesome, that's sweet. But also the fact that you brought up that it's a taser, it's not your traditional gun. Because that, again, it was a little bat type logo, and zap the guy. And I was like, there you go. That, again, the bat code of the bat. He didn't kill the guy. He's not a killer. And I like the fact they're continuing that. They're trying not to make him some type of monster that people fear, but somebody that the general citizen looks to for help, for safety, for protection. That protect and serve is the motto of police officers. So they're trying to make their Batman, instead of being out of the shadows, he's in the light. And it was the one comment about the color of the costume, where they could do all the changes, and they did all the flipping around and kind of funny moments. But I like the fact that it's the traditional blue, police blue with the flashing lights on the back. And this is a police officer, and I like how the exterior armor has it, but then when you get to the interior, it's the sleek bat costume with a bright yellow shield on it. So I was like, really cool usage of how they played it off, where the one is the one way, but then the other inside is still the bat.
It honestly, it all blended together into a nice package that sold me on it. And that's the purpose of a first issue. It's to take a concept, flesh it out for you. And please don't get me wrong, the preview on it, when we talked about Divergence, I was into it. It's Snyder and Capello, they're going to do something cool. I was into the whole thing. I really needed to see this, though. I loved that the costume choices, when they were going through it, they went through different historical variations of the Batsuit, including the Zur-En-Arrh and the year zero year Batsuit as well. Did we see Penny 2's on the team?
Oh, yeah, that's got to be Penny, too. Even though she has no association with the Batsuit, with the previous Batman, but she came highly recommended by Wayne and Lucius Fox. Oh, yeah, that's Penny, too. Mm-hmm. They changed the last name so no one would know, but it's still Julia. And it was funny because when they were initially sitting there, I'm like, did they put Luke Fox also? But then, okay, that's not Luke. Oh, okay, because I thought they did both of them right there in the outfit. But again, you got Penny too associated with the crew, so they're keeping an eye on what's going on. The Bat is still in the loop, which leads me to believe that they know that Bruce is still alive, and or this was Alfred saying, "Hey, we got to make sure everything's good." It's one of those things where I don't know if Alfred knows yet. I don't know if Alfred knows if Bruce is alive. I can't imagine that if Bruce knows he's Bruce Wayne, he didn't tell Alfred. I can't imagine he would do that to Alfred.
I don't think he knows, but I think I think there's a part of Alfred that is hoping whatever happened to Bruce is giving him a life outside of all this, which is all he ever hoped for Bruce.
Yeah.
So, we might as well just let's go to Batman Superman just because we're talking about it. Let's just organically kind of talk about that because those sequences were absolutely fabulous. You have all of a sudden Clark has to go to, after his confrontation with Robobat, he has a confrontation with, not a confrontation with Alfred, but he goes there to try and find Bruce and hopefully to try and find some answers to his own dilemma. And he sees a very dejected Alfred. And the line to me is, I just ask one thing. Let him rest in peace, for his sake and yours. His greatest gift to you was to be the shadow that let your light shine. That darkness was for him, not you. Now, in that moment, there's subtext there that you can read into it, that there's a part of Alfred that believes he's alive and wants him out of this world that he was in. He doesn't want this for Bruce. I could be reading way too much into that, but I don't think it's an accident. I think that's great writing to make you question, what does Alfred know, what does he not know? I don't think Bruce has had meetings with Alfred. I don't think that Bruce on the bench knows. Maybe. I could be wrong on that. I'm just speculating right now.
You thinking Bruce on the bench may not know he's Bruce Wayne?
I'm thinking whatever allowed him to still be alive has basically either what brought him back to life or what allowed him to be life is basically he doesn't know who he is.
Right.
I think. I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm in the same boat. I don't know for certain, and that's, I think, part of the fun of the mystery of the fact that we see Bruce is alive. He may not know who he is. He may know who he is. This whole Alfred bit was absolutely wonderful because it makes you 100% believe, well, he's throwing out there that he doesn't know whether Bruce is alive. And I love the fact that Clark comments on the fact that before all this, Alfred was a trained actor. And Clark does not have his super senses. He can't tell if there's lying. He's only got just his basic visual stuff. So he's believing Alfred that, okay, Bruce is actually dead. And even going through that with what you said, Alfred wants for Bruce to just be happy to live his life and to continue on. We saw that in the Nolan movies where that's all Alfred wanted. And even at the end where Bruce was supposedly dead and, sacrificed himself. And later Alfred sees he's still alive, living, with Selena and everything's happy. That's the only thing he ever wanted. He wanted Bruce to go on. He wanted Bruce to just, to get away from this. So right now, if Alfred knows, he's happy. If Alfred doesn't know, he's letting himself say, hey, he's at peace now. He's at rest. He's out. He's no longer torturing himself over something that happened as a child. So to me, this could either read one of two ways, and both ways are cool stories. Both ways are great things. Now, on my hand, if I was Alfred, I'd be pissed off at Bruce if he was alive and didn't tell me. Because, hey, come on, man. But, Alfred may know and Bruce may know. And this is the part of the story that I started thinking. Bruce started this whole mission of his to protect Gotham, to protect the innocent people of Gotham. Well, now there is another Batman, and that other Batman is Jim Gordon. So is he thinking, hey, I can take a break here? I can really, I don't need to be the Batman. I've got Gotham has its the Batman. We've got Penny 2 now in the mix, making sure they're doing things right. So I've got my inside agent. And Bruce is maybe taking some time saying, hey, I can live, I can be me, or maybe he's just recuperating. Maybe there's so many maybes that could happen. And that's part of the excitement of the story are the maybes.
It goes to the question, did Bruce have to recover? Was there a recovery time with this? Because obviously there's time passage here. Because Jim Gordon becoming Batman didn't happen overnight. So I'm taking that when Bruce is seen in that park, there's a significant time passage that has occurred that could have been part of his recovery. Did he make the decision to, wow, there's a new Batman in the place now, and should I just let him be? I don't know. I don't know that Bruce would just let that go. I want to know the story. That's the part I'm really intrigued by too. So they've got me on multiple levels with this. Can we talk about, I want to jump to Superman, but I think organically, let's stick with the Bat universe for one more piece, because we started talking about Catwoman, and I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about what's going on in that book and her reaction in particular to what happened with Bruce. But I think it goes to also, her stand-in Catwoman and her have become very, very close. Yet they're divided by the fact that they're part of two different families. Yet that relationship, we saw the kiss between them, and there's a deep relationship there of caring and trust. She knows that Selina's Catwoman, and she donned that role and that mantle, but she also knows about Selina's relationship with Batman, to the point that Batman was able to identify that she was not the real Catwoman.
Yeah.
I love the bit when Selina remained strong in front of her family, but collapsed going up the steps.
Yeah.
Oh, God, yeah. Just the realization of this love of hers, even though it's such a... it's a tragic love, because the two different worlds they're a part of do not mesh. From the beginning, if you remember the beginning of New 52, there's a lot of controversy in the way they were handling the sexuality between Batman and Catwoman. Was it too much and all of that? As New 52 is going on, there's been a maturing of what that's looked like between the two of them. And you get to see now there was more to that relationship, and there was something more solid, more concrete. There was a hidden respect and romance and love there that was maybe all of that stuff was masking. And I quite like that idea. So she collapses down there. I loved that her stand-in was there.
Yeah.
Waiting on the balcony, knowing that this was going to be hard news for her because it had just been released. She comes there to comfort her. I love seeing that Selina's juggling her role. She still is not the head of the family in her mind. That's not a life calling for her. This is a stopgap. This is a necessity in order to do what she can do to save Gotham. She hasn't 100% embraced that. But I'm at the point where I'm like, you know what? Those that are becoming closer to her, she needs to embrace that role. I love that she's got the duality now of Catwoman on top of this. She's using Catwoman as a way to forward her agenda by antagonizing things between the Falcones and Black Mask. I thought that whole bit was absolutely fantastic. She's using her dual worlds as a way to further her agenda, but now her family, well, at least, her what would be her top advisor, would be figuring this out as well, knowing her relationship with Catwoman. Do you think he knows she is Catwoman, or that she's working with Catwoman?
I took it that he knows she is.
Mm-hmm. I did too.
That's how I read it.
And the mask is on the bed,
right? But the mask could be on the bed is not because everyone knows she was Catwoman. Just the new Catwoman, people don't know that it's her,
right?
And the way she's playing it, that it's kind of keeping the mystery. But the way I read it is he has confirmed evidence that it is her, and he knows flat out, and that it will destroy her play. But again, as she throws out, he's not going to do that. she knows, that he's not going to do that. But
wait, this is a stupid argument, and I'm going to correct myself on this one. She's wearing the rest of the Catwoman suit during that conversation with him. I guess I was paying more attention to the fact that she wasn't wearing the mask and that her cohort was wearing the Catwoman outfit. Her stand-in was wearing the Catwoman outfit. I forgot that Selina was, in fact, still dressed in that outfit.
Okay. And there we go. Definitely. I'm going to say he 100% knows then.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good evidence right there. Yeah.
He knows there's two of them, actually, because depending on what he saw.
Does he know who the other one is?
Ooh, boy.
Because that could be what he's threatening to reveal. Because if he knows who the other one is, that'll be really dangerous for her.
Yeah.
That could be when she's telling him, you're not going to say that. You're not going to. That maybe is what she was talking about, saying, hey, you're not going to give away who the other person is.
Do you think he's loyal to her?
I think he's more loyal to her than to Black Mask.
No, I think.
But I don't think he's loyal to her.
I think he's loyal to the family. And I think as long as he believes she cares for and is trying to protect the family, he will protect her. Because of recent events, I think he believes it. I think this has taken them a step back. But I still think there's that part of him that's like, there's a part of me that believes she's still one of us. So I think it's an interesting relationship between the two of them. It's actually one of the things I really am enjoying about this series is the tete-a-tete between the two of them. He's a true loyalist. He believes in the family. He's loyal to that family. I see him going down with the ship before he would jump ship. As far as his relationship with the family, he's one of your true, there's certain family members that would not turn on the family. You know what he is? He's Luca Brasi. Luca will die first before he turns on the family. This guy would be a plant. You could put him inside another family. He would never truly turn, though. Mm-hmm. And I really like that about this series. This is one of DC's better written books right now. Catwoman is one of my favorite titles that DC's publishing right now. Just page by page, dialogue, art, story. Since this creative team has taken over, they've really taken Catwoman and made it a must-read title. And I know I've mentioned on the show multiple times, I really encourage people to read that sneak peek. This is a good jumping on point because this issue gives you everything you need to know to kind of know the status quo of Catwoman right now. So if you're like, I can't go back and read everything, don't. This is a jump on point.
Yeah.
And I would say for most of the titles I've read so far over these past 2 weeks, I can't think of anything I've read that it hasn't been a jumping on point. So there's nothing you really need to read before. You might want to, if you get into a title, you might want to read it on your own for your own purposes where you're like, oh, I'm into this title now. I kind of want to read the backstory. And that's cool. That's a good reason to do it. But you don't have to if you're on a budget and you're like, I can grab one title. I can't go back and read all the other stuff. I don't have the time or the money or whatever, would hold you back from that. This is a great way to get on these books. And Catwoman is one I would really encourage people. If you're not reading this title and you're a Batman fan at all, here's the thing, though. This book stands on its own.
Yeah.
So if you're into crime drama, you're into things like Sopranos or, any of those, those type of stories like that, this is a book for you. It's a really good book.
Yeah, and you mentioned crime drama. I think that's a very good, it's like detective for me is going to be more of the police work. This is going to be on the back end side of that. This is going to be what the criminals are doing, how the criminals are reacting. But you've got the one criminal who's nicer. She's more of a good guy than but she still is a bad guy. She still is, a killer. She still is part of a crime, the head of a crime family. But it's, again, the motivations of her crime family. I think that, for me, makes it interesting discussion, makes for interesting reading. You take the fact that it's Catwoman out of the picture, you still would have a great book. Catwoman adds a little something extra to it and makes it, I think, a little bit nicer, but it's still... Without even just, you do Selina Kyle, the Calabrese family, the Falcones, you take all that, you could turn this into an actual mob, story. You can turn this into organized crime family stories. You could do however, you want to call it. You could actually pull that off of this book. And I think that is something that's kind of neat. Plus, this, for me, Catwoman is one of those titles that I really enjoyed the multiple read-throughs on. just
Yes.
because of what we were talking about, how there's some really great dialogue and there's some really great stuff happening where the beginning of the book, you read it one way. After the stuff that happens at the end, you go back and reread it. You're like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting here. What's actually going to happen here? And it makes you think about possible divergence of stories and swerves and whatnot.
I love the reference to the Borgias in it. I love how they
Yes.
interplay that. I think that just adds another little twist to it. You know, I'm going to put. Here's the best way I would put Catwoman right now for people out there. I consider Grayson right now a benchmark book. You know, as far as you take a look at that, and there's been, since Grayson's come out, there's a quality to Grayson that I think has established a really high benchmark for what, you know, comics should be and where they are. Not all comics are equal. And, you know, one of my favorite books out there right now is Grayson because of just issue after issue. There's not a wasted panel. It just delivers a high quality story. And the artwork in it, the writing in it, it's a style piece. You know, it's something unique to it. I know I talk about Starman a lot on the show. One of those reasons why that book has always stood out for me is it enjoyed two different art teams in its tenure. Both art teams, it was a style thing. And matched with the writing and dialogue. Starman was a style book. It came out with Zero Year. It was the Zero issue came out. It was something different. And it maintained that unique tone all the way through the entire 81 issue, I believe, run of the series. And there was something unique about it. It was an event to it. Wade's run and Jeff Johns' run on The Flash with Wally West. The reason why there's such a legion of fans, there was a style to that. There was something that, you know, it had its own flavor to it that people like long for. To me, it defined what the Flash should be, and it's clear our current writers get it. You know what I mean? On that end, this book is in that category. It's unique. It's different. It reminds me when Brubaker was on Catwoman. I really loved that run of Catwoman. I thought it was a really stylized, unique run of Catwoman. And this has got that vibe to it. It's really high-quality stuff. And if you haven't been reading it, it's an easy jump-on point, and I can't recommend it highly enough. But it's in that category. Right now, I would say it's in the Grayson category of really good choices. You know, whoever went with the go-ahead of these pitches, yay.
Yeah.
Because they took some books and kicked it. Grayson, you know, it was funny. Grayson had to deal with the fact that Nightwing was so awesome before it. And Grayson did a great job of saying, hey, let's challenge what you know about this character and give you everything you do know about it at the same time. And I think Catwoman's doing the same thing. This is at the core. This is Selena Kyle. This is Catwoman in and out of the costume, dealing with this world. And I think it's doing what Grayson's doing so well. So I give Catwoman the highest possible recommendation. It's one of the things I didn't intend on going on and on about Catwoman on this episode, but this book begs to be talked about.
Oh, big time. And it's funny, I agree with you because we don't talk about it that much, but we both have the same feelings towards it. And we both have the same love for that book. And I don't know why we don't talk about it more. Maybe it's because it's not always tied up in the big storylines, but it is affected. Like it's affected by Endgame, but it wasn't like one of the major pieces and cogs of Endgame. You know, so it's there, it's in the universe, and you see the ramifications, you see what happens because of those stories, but it's still keeping separate. So it's a great Gotham story that's not completely beholden to Batman universe.
Let's jump to Action Comics if we could. I know, and we're kind of doing this organically. First of all, you have to read the Action Comics sneak peek.
Yes.
That's so important because it's weird. Some of the backlash I'm seeing about Action Comics on the internet, I'm wondering if some of these people even read the sneak peek. Because the people that are he's not wearing the suit, it's like, did you not read the sneak peek? And I get it if you didn't. I would say go read that and then see if you still have an issue. Because that's story-driven. This not wearing the suit isn't his choice. The Fortress of Solace suit said, give me that.
And he had to not Kal-El and ripped it from his chest.
Yes. Yeah.
So we have a weakened Superman in the middle of the Arctic Circle with nothing. And I was like, oh, that's awesome.
Except the tatters of the cape that was all he was able to hold on to because he had enough strength that the fortress couldn't pull that through.
Yeah.
Woof. And this is a direct effect, right, of his power, that new power. It launched, and he's depowered because of it, right? Is that what we're dealing with here?
I'm thinking it's not just depowered. He is, I think, on some way, shape, or form, his genetic structure has been altered. And maybe it is because of this massive release of energy, but I'm thinking on the molecular level, something has changed with him. Because I was thinking about what if because he flew through a black hole to get back to Earth. What if in that process something happened? You know, I don't know. I don't want to say clone, but what if his body was changed? What if there's two Supermen out there? One who's more human, one who's more Kryptonian.
See, I still think this is a direct effect of the power. I think his powers, we got to remember, his powers do that. And I think Batman was talking about what was going with him. Remember when they were analyzing what was going on? Batman was talking about how he was changing on some level because of this power release and what it was doing to him, and questioning what this means for him if it keeps happening. And I thought that analysis with Batman, I thought, was really critical to my understanding of what happens when he releases that power. And I think we're seeing a direct effect of that right here. We don't know. He doesn't know when and if he's going to get his full power back or whatever. He's got power right now. I love this story. To me, I loved the whole sneak peek, as far as the Fortress taking it back. And that I like that he's got two pieces. He's wrapping around his hands and going, this is, because of the fact that the cape is indestructible, it's also a piece of who he is. I love that there's a story-driven reason to grab the Superman shirt to say, I'm still Superman, because everyone knows Kent is Superman, so what am I hiding from? But it brings into play the question, and I like how this is playing into the story, is Clark Kent Superman? Or is there something else at work? Like Luthor's asking the question. I don't, in Batman Superman, I don't know that I believe you're Superman. I don't know what we're playing at here, but where is Superman and what's going on? And that could be to your point. That maybe there is some other being in there, but I'm not 100% sold on that's not him.
And that's actually the Batman Superman the Luthor scene is one of the parts that got me thinking that way. What if, or maybe that could be their explanation, is to once again protect the Clark Kent secret identity. Maybe down the line they'll play that route with it. But it is something that entered when I saw that. I'm like, what if he's different? What if this is, because the Fortress said you're not Kryptonian. Flat out, and it's not even just your Kryptonian depowered, because a Kryptonian who hasn't been absorbed enough of the yellow sun is still a Kryptonian. The Fortress said he's not Kryptonian. He's not of the House of El. So that got me thinking: what if he's not actually that person? What if there's something different? What if there's something else going on out there? And that's again stories that get me thinking off page or stuff that I absolutely love. I love the fact that we're dealing with the fact that everybody knows he's a Superman, but they also know, hey, Superman ain't as tough as he used to be. Something happened to him. He's a lot weaker. He can't fly. Maybe I can be the one to take him. And I love those guys who are thinking, yeah, we can take him. I don't think so. Bam, and Clark's just, fighting back. But you can tell it's a struggle, and he's dealing with everyday normal people, and he's struggling. He's dealing with powerful beings that he should wipe the floor with, but it's a struggle. And I love the fact that we have this depowered Superman, but it's not, a lot of times when they've done depowered Superman stories, I'm like, I don't know about this. I don't know. It's always something that kind of had me, I was on the fence with it. There's some stories that I absolutely love. Jeff Johns' Up and Away story. I absolutely loved how they handled the depowered Superman, because Clark was being Clark. He was still being the investigative reporter. Here we have a depowered Superman who still is Superman, who's still saying, hey, I'm going to step up. I'm still going to do my job. I'm still going to do what I have to do. I'm still Superman. So I love seeing that the depowered Superman is not just hanging back and not doing anything. It shows why he is Superman, why he is that person that people want to aspire to be.
That's why I don't want there to be a second Superman. I like that at the core, what we're seeing here is Superman is more than his powers. I think Convergence did a lot of the cool stuff with this, too. With the being trapped under the bubble for the year, how he was still trying to do things. The various versions of Superman were still trying to do things, even though they didn't have their powers. I quite like that. In this case, to me, I think he's not reading as Kryptonian, because that power burst is violent, and it unleashes from his cells that power, that unique signature that makes him Superman. I'm wondering if the Fortress doesn't read him as Superman because of the after effect of that power release. That happens at a cellular level for him when that happens. So by its nature, if you take a look at that, because Batman mentioned that came from his cells, it's a cellular release. So to your point of there being something cellular going on, I think you're onto something there. I think that's, a lot of what Batman's alluding to. When you do this, it basically you read different, and you don't read as you. And I think that kind of stuff is readily apparent with what happened with the Fortress. And clearly he's not absorbing power again. He's a battery. He's a living battery. That's been the concept of Superman in recent years. The idea that he absorbs from the sun. He's like what happens to a rechargeable after a certain amount of time. It just doesn't charge right. Well, that's what's going on with Superman right now. It just doesn't charge right. To your point, as far as like this being a great story that shows the Superman, I love this. Do I want this forever? No. But here's my question. This has got me thinking off the page. What happens when he encounters kryptonite?
Oh, God, yeah, I want to see that as well.
Because
I agree with you. What happens?
We've got something cellularly going on with him right now. Is it going to have the same effect? Or is the fact that, is that going to be a positive out of this? It's going to be like a kryptonite punch. I mean, I want to see that kind of stuff. Well, either way, I'm curious as to what's happening here. So, and let me clarify, too. Like you, I'm speculating. If there is some other super being that's a part of all this, there's an energy being or somebody else has his powers or something like that, fine, I'm cool with all that. I'm as long as it's a good story, I'm in and I'm on board. But right now I'm riding on the fact that this is the guy, and it's the power that did this to him, that violent power that he has. Because we've seen it do this to him every time he's used that power. This time it's just been worse, and Batman speculated that this might happen. And I like that speculation is paying off now.
Yeah, and let me clarify, just so everyone knows, I don't want there to be multiple Supermen. I want this to be the one guy, and I want it to be because of the energy release. And you think about just how it releases from the cellular level. When he first hit Earth, he didn't have superpowers. It took 13 plus years of absorbing the sun for him to get to become Superman.
Yes.
So maybe this is just the recharging period. Maybe if when Clark had been a boy and he had encountered the Fortress or encountered the stuff, it wouldn't have reacted to him because it wouldn't have recognized him or wouldn't have, or something. I don't know. Maybe we're seeing just because it's such a cellular, it's the energy, when he absorbs the energy from the sun, it does change something, and it does change to the point where this is what I recognize. This is who I am, who is the actual person that I'm looking for. It's not a different of, like with us, you look at the blood type, fingerprint, stuff like that is constant. It's the same. Well, maybe when you're dealing with Kryptonian DNA, his DNA was actually altered from normal Kryptonian to something else, and he needs to get back to that point before the Fortress will recognize him. It's I'm assuming he's going to get back into his home. I'm assuming he's going to get back the costume. He's going to get back everything eventually, and this is going to be a process. But throughout that time, we're going to see Clark Kent Superman more than we're going to see this weaker Superman, but he still is at his heart and soul Superman, and I like that, and I'm very excited for that. It was something when we talked about truth and the story before we had any details on it. We were all like, I don't know about this.
Yep.
How are they going to do this story? And we're getting just the first couple stories of it, and I'm really into it. I'm really digging how people have turned on him, but there's still the loyalists. There's still people, but Clark is trying to keep himself, constant and solid, and just keeping who he is. And I like people's reaction to him. I loved the Superman Batman with him in Gotham, where they're like, "Hey, hit the road, Jack. We don't want you around here." And you get that Batman Superman confrontation. I really dig that. These are some stuff that, okay, this is kind of cool.
We've been told not to support you.
Yeah.
And it's higher up in the food chain, and that's where he goes to Luthor, and we know what's going on there. It's a very interesting dynamic, and I love Luthor's role in this. I think, he's digging every minute of this, but he's also looking at how can this benefit me? What can I do with this? It's a very interesting sort of model that's going on here. I'm really digging this. Luthor doesn't I really believe Luthor doesn't believe that he's Superman.
Right. And I think that's how they're going to explain away this.
Yep.
That when Clark gets full powered, he's going to say, I'm not actually Clark Kent. What I did was I modified Clark Kent's cellular structure so he could be a Superman. But he took over for me while I was away. I'm the real Superman. Clark Kent's not me. And they can go back to kind of a dual identity. They've got people who can make, they've got a shapeshifters. They've got magic users. They've got the Bruce Wayne tech that completely changes a person's appearance. We've seen multiple members of the Bat universe utilize it. So they can very easily have someone utilize it to make themselves look like Clark Kent. So I think they could very easily, when everything is said and done, go back to the status quo of a secret identity question mark. People
Do they
will
have
wonder,
to?
people will not.
Do they have to?
No, for me, no. I think this is kind of a neat story they can go with, where Clark getting used to this new life, where people know can Clark Kent continue eventually when Superman's fully charged and fully powerful, and can he go back to being a reporter again? Can he go back to doing the or is this going to be a new stage of development for Superman? Will Superman start becoming maybe an agent for the police or agent for the government or something like that?
Or Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Maybe there's this is the beginning of something new for Superman and something new for Clark Kent. I don't know. It's, again, that'd be kind of neat. Agent of Argus, Agent Kent. Where he's still Superman, but he's an agent. Or the Justice League, it's the Justice League becomes government funded or government sponsored or something like that, where he's still he's operating outside of he still is Superman, but he still is Clark Kent. I think there's so many different ways they could go with this story, and I think that is something I'm excited to see.
Here's the thing. What ends up happening with all of that is anytime Superman's gone down that path, it ultimately doesn't work because it goes against what Superman is as a symbol. And that's what I love about this story right now. He's fighting to kind of figure out his role in everything and how not to lose himself in this. Who he is, what his core values and beliefs are, and things like that. And Alfred's discussion with him, I think, is very poignant because it serves a dual purpose. First of all, leaving Bruce in peace. I get that. But also, don't become that. Because you aren't that. You need to be, the shining light and things like that. Alfred is like one of the... Everyone should go... there should be an issue in every comic book series where people just go and talk to Alfred. Because he just seems to universally get it for everybody and know the right thing to say. And I love the writing of Alfred in Batman Superman. And I think it plays so well into this series. I love when, Superman's trying to buy the bike, legally, trying to do his thing. He's got some money. He's trying to, let me buy this bike. Let me just go on the road and, kind of try to figure out a spot where I can fit in. And he avoided getting the Superman t-shirt there because of the fact that he's like, right now I need to kind of get off the radar. But he can't because it's all over the place that he is in fact Superman. And, when he makes the deal and because of fair price for the bike, the guy comes out and says, no, I want $2,000 now because I know who you are. And we're going to play this game right now, because if you don't pay that for the bike, I'm going to out you and all this kind of thing right here. And this is going to be a big problem. So the whole gang comes out to kind of take on Superman all of a sudden. So now the wimpy little kid that was trying to manipulate everything got his way. And Superman's fighting these guys. And he doesn't want to do it. He's kind of like, we had an honest deal here. Leave me alone. I loved that whole fight, how it went down. And the way that it was like, Superman's like, I don't want to do that. But then it leads to him leaving in a Superman shirt.
Yeah.
And I like that was organic. It came out of the fight. He's like, all right, done. You're not going to let me be outside of being Superman? Then I'm going to drive around being Superman. But I like that the T-shirt comes out of, first of all, it goes back to his history. In New 52, Superman started off in a T-shirt. Now he's back to a T-shirt again. Not out of choice. It's story-driven. The structure took his suit from him. This wasn't something he did out of choice. He played tug of war, and the only piece that he's got of it is those two little pieces of cape. And there's something to that. I like the analysis of taking a look at when there's a contrast to the Flash's home, where everyone seems to embrace the Flash, but in his case he's feeling lost, and he goes back to his hometown, his home area where he was living, and everybody loves him there.
Yes.
It's like we stand with Superman. This is a good thing. It's Kentville, all that kind of thing. The kids love it. I'm so glad that he had that moment because in there, when you see the kids clinging to him, you see the light, the hope that is Superman. I geeked out over that whole sequence of events. Because, wait, if we lived in that neighborhood...
Oh, come on.
It would be so... Yeah. It goes back... Remember our discussion last episode? We were saying, would we go to this town? Would we go to that town? I question you on that. Because if there are real superheroes around, we had the opportunity to go and see them and just kind of like, fist bump them or something like that. I know there's risk in certain cases like that, but it's kind of one of those things where you go, dude, that was scary as can be to go there, but we got to fist bump the Flash. I mean, we would do that.
I've had a couple people, call, say, hey, come on, really? If Superman actually existed, you'd be moving to Metropolis today. I'm like,
right.
And
I don't move, and I'll agree with you, I wouldn't move to Gotham, but if we knew that Batman was there, you wouldn't go there just to, for a weekend to see, maybe a weekday, kind of figuring that'll be a little lighter on a weekday, maybe we'll go like Wednesday, Thursday. Yeah. Maybe we'll run into Batman, come on, right?
Yeah, I probably would. And to be honest, if I, looking at it, I look at things sometimes with the logic side, and I look at sometimes with the heart side. And the heart side of me says I'd be living in Metropolis without a heart. I got to be there, and I'd be in that neighborhood, and I would be one of those guys holding up "We Stand with Superman." I'd start wearing the Superman shirt. Just you got to it's one of those things where I'd love to say, "Oh yeah, I'd do that kind of stuff." But here's the neat thing about this: you start looking at just the way people react to stuff, and I can so see how someone would, as much as I'm like saying I would be hooping and hollering, "Yay, Superman!" When you start getting the pressure, when you start getting people saying, hey, there's some creepy alien, disease coming from him. What? Wait, no. Yeah. You get enough people tell you that it happened, you start believing. It's kind of like the, that old wives story about how at some guy's reception, at the wedding reception, he has everyone look under the seat, and there's a picture of the bride and the best man fooling around, and he goes, I want a divorce, and he storms off in the middle of the after going through the whole wedding and the whole reception and all that stuff. And there are people out there who say, oh no, that really happened. So and so, a buddy of mine's aunt was there, or a cousin was there, or something. And you get people who still believe that. You still get people who still believe that kind of stuff. So even with the craziness of what we know how awesome Superman is, you get enough people saying, no, there's something wrong here. People will buy it and people will believe it. And I think that for me is one of the strengths behind the craziness of the Superman hate, that it's, in the end, it is believable, because we know for a fact that people wouldn't 100% trust Superman this day and age. There would be people out there who say, what's his end game? Why is he doing this? Why is he helping people? Then once you find out he's been secretly living amongst us, oh my God, he's a spy. Why is he doing? That's creepy. What kind of weirdo is he? What kind of perverted stuff is he doing as a normal person? There's all these different things. And that for me is the strength of how much I love the hate behind the Superman. But I equally love just the fact that there are those people who are still the Superman supporters. And it's one of the thing of this issue, as well as the Batman Superman issue, where you really see just the both sides of it. Both sides make sense. Both sides of it are really strong parts of the story.
But the key, and the critical key to that to me, is always, how does Superman react to that? That's what makes him Superman. It's not what's going on around him, it's how does he react to it, and that's what makes him the beacon of light. Superman is the one, when he's in that environment, he evokes change. For people out there that kind of want a rich history of Superman, there's a lot of best of Superman volumes out there that go through all the eras, from the Golden Age straight on through to modern. I would encourage you to read one of those and kind of take a look at how Superman has changed and evolved and adapted to various different eras. He is not a static character as much as people like to think. Superman has had evolutions. You look at the Golden Age. The Golden Age Superman is much different than the Kurt Swan Superman, much different than the John Byrne Superman. There's stuff, and I'm not giving creators enough credit in that diatribe there. As you go through and take a look, so many great creators have touched this hero. and done their own spin on him and adapted him and evolved him over time, that there's certain core qualities that I think make Superman who he is, but I don't know if you go back to the Golden Age that our perception of what Superman is, I'm not talking about the New 52 version in general, just the idea of Superman, is necessarily fair to what his original creation was. He evolved over time. He's a different sort of character than the original intention was with him. And I actually like that. I like that he's a character that's adaptable. It's a concept that's adaptable over time. And to your point right now, I think what's fun is, to me, yes, this is how the world would react to Superman right now. And I like that in this, I find him immensely likable. Like, I would want to do something to help him because of how he presents himself. I know I'd like him if we sat down and met in a diner or something like that. You know what I mean? And that's at the core. What has always made the Superman mythos concept work, when sometimes they take him away from that value that you believe Superman is this guy you can hang with. The Kansas Farm Boy thing as a concept, why that always worked, why Clark Kent in that mode worked. And I'm not talking about the Clark Kent that was bumbling that they would put on every so often to keep people from guessing he was Superman. I'm talking about the in-between guy. The Clark Kent that isn't the guy in the suit, the Clark Kent that isn't the guy at the office, the guy that we sometimes get in conversations with his parents. I think that was something that was handled very well in the post-crisis Superman. The idea of, these communications he had with his parents, you got to see like kind of the real him. I always liked that. And I know you and I both liked that from shows like Lois and Clark. I liked that there was a 3-tier character there with Superman. It's that guy. And we're getting that guy on the bike. We're getting that guy in his dealings, in his inner dialogue right now. And I love that right now in these issues that we've seen him, I really feel like I'm riding along with and hanging with and enjoying Superman and seeing a guy who is struggling to maintain his values in lieu of everything that's being thrust on him right now. And I find him immensely likable because of that. He's Superman, not because of powers, but because of who he is as a man. And when you put him up against insurmountable odds, that's when you see it.
Yeah, it's the funny thing about some of these sequences where when I'm reading it, I want to jump in the book and I want to watch his back. I want to get his back. Mm-hmm. And it's the bike scene where those guys jump him and start ripping him off. I want to jump in there and say, hey, back off, and I want to stand shoulder to shoulder and I'll throw some punches with Superman. When, he's, shows up at the party, I want to be one of those guys holding the banner saying, I stand with Superman, and that's the kind of stuff that the character is, the person is coming out. It's the Smallville Clark Kent. I love that TV show, and I loved how Clark was portrayed as this normal teenage. He wasn't the bumbling, he wasn't the goofy, and don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking that. I love the Christopher Reeve stuff. It's still a great Superman, just the way he played it. But I really dig the fact that he wasn't that the Smallville Clark wasn't the bumbling nerd. He ended up being like the starting, the main guy on the football team. He was Clark Kent. He was a popular guy in the school. And I liked that we see this kid, act that way, but he still had to always, hold back. He had to make sure he was careful. In the old TV show with George Reeves, he wasn't up. His Clark Kent wasn't bumbling. He was still just, he was Clark Kent. He was a cool guy to hang out with. He seemed like a decent fella. So it was kind of neat that you see that type of style to Clark Kent. And now we're really seeing that because it's the secrets out there. And I think that's something in the end, it's going to make you want to be this guy's friend. It's going to make you want to, stand with him. And it's something it's that connectability. It's going to strengthen that with people, with readers, with the characters in the story to the man.
Did you watch the Kirk Alyn serial, the original Kirk Alyn serial ever?
I don't think so.
That predates George Reeves as Superman. And I guess the point I'm going for there, and you can go back to the original cartoons, and I'm drawing a blank on the studio that did them, and I'm kicking myself right now because I adore them. I thought they were some very edgy cartoons that I think still hold up today. If you go back and look at the original Superman cartoons, the very first wave of them that they did, I think through animation style and through sheer overall quality, and it's one of those things when we're done recording, I'm going to remember what they are, but... I think there's a point to taking a look at Superman in media. and taking a look at the radio plays, taking a look at the serials, and all the way through. If you want to do a really cool self-study of Superman, as I'm being attacked right now, that's
Clark on his bike.
That is Clark on. Wait, see you later. I'm not a motorcycle guy at all. He made me want to be a motorcycle guy. Like I'm looking at that, I'm like, oh, well, Superman makes it look cool, especially when he takes the bat cycle. Like, I thought that was totally awesome. Like,
when he takes a bat cycle and paints it
red,
puts the color into it, so it's not Batman.
Yes.
It is in the light. So I like that. Yeah.
It's a super cycle. I love it. It's great. It's good stuff. And Bruce would want him to do that. I mean, it's like that's kind of the neat thing about the whole thing. I'm like, that's not stealing. That's borrowing from a friend who would give that to you posthumously. I mean, it was really great stuff. But my point with the whole looking over Superman over the eras, you started throwing out like Christopher Reeve versus Smallville. You could do that through versus Lois and Clark versus the Filmation cartoons versus George Reeves, Super Friends. Those characters are not all exactly the same. They adapt and shift depending on the audience and the intention and the era. He is a character that has not been the same thing all the way through. And if you oversimplify that, you take away the creative juices of what people did who've touched this character over the years. And that's just in media. Comics are even more diverse in their handling of Superman. That's not to say that everything's been a home run. It hasn't. A lot of times there's been experiments that have gone horribly wrong. And they've had to right the ship with the character. And you have to do that, I think, with everybody. But Superman, I think, has gone through more eras of that, where it's been kind of like, ooh, you're kind of, what are you doing here? It's kind of like, you've forgotten who the guy is. And we've gotten back to the core of that, I think, of what I like about Superman as a character. This is different. It is very different. And for some people, that's going to be a challenge. And I get it. And I'm more of the mind that eventually we're going to see, Superman back. I agree with you that I think we're eventually going to have an explanation as to why the secret identity is back in place. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know what these shadow figures that are chasing him is not a throwaway. I'm very anxious to read Superman 42 to see more of this, because we've been thrust in the middle of something deliberately. Yeah. And I think that Superman 42 is going to give us some answers. Possibly more answers, I should say, to the mystery, because every issue is referred to that. If you notice that along the way, everything keeps referring to Superman 42.
Yeah, they've made some references, and it's kind of weird how they're doing it, where we're at 41 and they're referencing to a future episode saying, hey, here's where you're explaining. And in a way, I do like that they're referencing into it, so I know, okay, I didn't miss something. But I am like, dang it, come on, I want to know. I want to know now.
But that's the point. That's the point,
it's the
though.
Anticipation.
And that's a good editor's note. To me, that's, we always talk about, like, why aren't there more editor's notes? This is a good use of an editor's note. Just saying, hey, you didn't miss something. You're going to get that story. This is all there. And we're referencing it with good writing to let you know that, like, there is something you missed. So you're not imagining something, but you missed it on purpose. And here's where you're going to get more of those tastes.
Yeah, because I was getting ready to start going back through the sneak peeks and stuff like that. And I was like, wait a minute. I was getting ready to start pulling out the boxes. Went, okay, which issue is this now? I got to see.
But that, to me, that's a great use of an editor's note. And yes, I really appreciate the editor's notes in that, because that's gotten me excited for issue 42 as opposed to angry for what I'm missing.
Right.
So I'm excited. I'm anticipating. Your response, I thought, was brilliant, because I'm sitting there like, yeah, that's Jim. That's exactly where I'm at too. I'm like, come on, I want it now. I want it next week. But that should be the way that we're feeling. I want that issue. It's a different frustration than, am I going to get this eventually or not? Now we know we're going to get it, and this is where it's going to start. 42. And I think there's a larger story to be told there, and I can't wait to see what it is. I could not be happier. We mentioned on multiple podcast episodes before Convergence hit that I was becoming very Superman happy. And I really was liking the direction of the character and what they were doing with him. I thought that they were, I mentioned Action Comics in particular as being one of those where I'm like, this is a sleeper Superman book. You don't hear about this one enough, and I'm really enjoying what they're doing in this particular title with the character. But I was enjoying all the books. I think they'd really kicked Superman up a notch, and I was really digging where they were going with the character. Then they did this, and I'm even more excited. I was like you. I don't know if you were as leery as I was. I was looking at that. I'm like, all right. I'm gonna have some confidence because I'm liking what they're doing right now. But it was very similar to Batman, where I'm like, Only because I'm liking what they're doing right now. They've got me on board, but I'm a little concerned. I'm a little tentative on this whole thing. In practice, reading this is brilliant. I mean, I am so... it's taken what I liked before and taken me up 3 more steps in my love for Superman right now. I'm very excited. Superman 42 can't get here soon enough. It's going to be one of the first books I read. The only thing that could possibly do that is I don't know what's honestly. Here's the thing, and this is a rarity for me with Superman. I don't know what book right now would step in the way of me reading 42 of Superman when that comes out. That's going to be the first book I read because I'm that into this story.
Yeah, I think when I see Bat or Truth on the cover, I'm jumping on it. And those are the 2 titles, and it's when I'm in a month where I've got both a Bat and a Truth thing. That's a tough call for me to make. With this past week when the books came out, we had the Bat books and we had the Batman Superman with the big Truth on it. I'm like, right. I jumped on the Bat books because I really wanted to see what was going on. But I grabbed Batman, Detective, and Batman and Superman and had all 3 of them together. I was going to go 1-1-1, and I read them that way. So bam, 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 knocked them out. So when I'm looking at a Superman book or a Bat book, those are going right to the top of the pile.
Oh,
and
the only thing that'll give it a run for its money for me? I know exactly what it is. I'll say it right now. Secret Six. Yep.
Yeah.
And there's a book that I'm so glad had a great sneak preview.
Yes.
And I honestly would go out on a limb and say, for anybody out there who hasn't read Secret Six, it's like, I don't know if that book's for me. I've kind of heard what it's all about, Promise-Wise or anything like that. Please read that preview, because I think that preview was so perfect, that sneak peek. It was a nice contained story that I thought just gave you a great kind of overview of the tone, feel, writing, and drama that goes on in Secret Six. So I encourage everybody out there to read that Secret Six preview because, was that so good. I love the new look of Catman.
Yeah.
Just really, really good stuff in Secret Six. So that'd be the only thing that would give Superman a run for its money, I think. Can we talk some Omega Men?
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah. We're going to talk about Omega Men #1. The writer is Tom King. Artist by Barnaby Bagenda. Banjdia. Colorist Romelu Fajardo Jr. Letterer Pat Brousseau, with cover by Trevor Hutchins, with variant cover by Toby Cypress. Assistant editor is Amedeo Turturro. Editors Andy Horry with Brian Cunningham, and in memory of Roger Slifer. Omega Men were created by Marv Wolfman and Joe Stanton.
And apologies for any name butchery. It's funny, when you and I were talking about doing the creative team on this one, we knew it was going to be very butchered, and this was really a cool book. I was anticipating it, honestly, because I really enjoy the writing of Tom King. Kicking into the preview, and I actually read this is one of those where I wasn't fully aware of what the previews were doing. I read the book before I read the preview of this one. And this is one where you can really read the preview before or after, I think, just because of the nature of what the preview was of this one. Because the preview was it was a video of Kyle Rayner, basically in a hostage situation, where they're basically telling the world, hey, we've had the alpha kind of ruling over this. And this really is what happens when you're an oppressed society and you want to rise up. And it's the question is, are you on the side of the terrorists? Are you on the side of order? When is rebellion okay? When is it not? And this feels very much like a getting to know you process on the Omega Men, what they stand for, what they're trying to rise up against, and what they're trying to do. I like that the video blurs out when it looks like Tigor's trying to kill Kyle Rayner at the end of that preview, because that leads me to believe that is, in fact, an intentional thing. They aren't really killing him.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Here's the thing, motivation-wise with them, with it being only the first issue so far, I don't know that they wouldn't if they felt it was in the interest of the greater good. And I don't know if I'm right or wrong on that. What I love about this book right now is we're seeing this movement of this rising up against oppression of this team, this Omega Men, who believe that, the Alpha has naturally led to the Omega, to this ending of things as they've been. And, this is really the counteragent to, you've done this, now this is the reaction to it. I really like that this is a getting to know you thing. The one thing that they did very well here was you gave enough action that you got an interest in the action and Tigor and who are these colorful characters. I am not a big Omega Men aficionado. I mentioned it on a previous cast where we were talking about this, that I know them from miniseries and from some crossovers, but I don't know them. Actually, a lot of what I said about Lobo earlier, I think applies even more to Omega Men. I knew more about Lobo than I do about the Omega Men. I know who Tigor is, and I know a couple of the other characters from name, because of crossovers. I don't really know them, though. I just don't. We read a mini, during our tenure of doing this podcast about Omega Men. I quite liked it, but I don't feel like I still don't feel like I really know the Omega Men, and I think I'm a perfect candidate for this book because of it. I don't have a lot of attachment to what their previous status quo was, so okay, explain them to me. Show me a version of them. Show me today. What does it look like today? I like that this embraces the whole space concept, but shows you something a little different than we've seen from the Green Lantern books, but yet brings it, like bringing in Kyle Rayner. I didn't see that curveball coming. And because I did not read the preview before reading this. So I didn't know going into this issue that Kyle Rayner might be in the box. So I read through and I'm like, huh?
What's in the box?
What's in the box?
What's in the box?
It reads a lot differently if you read the preview first. I don't know if there's a right way or a wrong way to read this, though, because the first issue read very well for me, but it was a total mystery. And when you see the thump, 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 I'm like, oh, there's something alive in there. There's someone you may have known. Did you know it was Kyle when you read this issue?
Here, I read the preview.
Okay.
The sneak peek, but I didn't, when I started reading the Omega Men, I wasn't remembering what actually happened. I remembered reading it. Oh, okay. And I remember having like a positive vibe to it. Like, oh, okay. But it wasn't anything that locked in my head. Like with the Action Comics, I vividly remember the ripping off of the chest and all the ripping of the logo and everything that happened to Clark. I vividly remember that. I didn't vividly remember Omega Men, but then when I started reading Death of Kyle Rayner, I'm like, wait, oh yeah, they had a hostage. And it was one of those things where it was slowly building, and then so the surprise of Kyle being in the box was still there for me. It didn't completely ruin it. I wasn't sitting there thinking the whole time, oh, that's Kyle Rayner.
Right.
But there was still a little bit of a surprise to it. But I did kind of remember, oh yeah, they had a run-in with Kyle, and I was going to go back and reread the sneak peek later because I had it in my head, but I didn't have it completely locked in my head. Because like you, I'm still learning who the Omega Men. This right here is my intro to Omega Men for all practical purposes. We did that thing before, but before this I couldn't tell you a name on the team. And it was one of those things where I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. So when I read that initial thing, at the time when I read it, I didn't even know it was going to be, again, I didn't know it was going to be, a sneak peek. It was going to be, always thought it was going to be a piece of this issue.
Yes.
So going into it, I wasn't paying too much attention to it. I was just seeing, oh, okay, kind of interesting, but nothing too major. I wasn't really reading in depth to it. So I'm definitely going back and rereading that again. And it changes. Again, you reread the stuff afterwards, reread it now. It's a lot different reading through, now than it was then. But this was a cool thing because it was a nice surprise to see Kyle there. It was a nice surprise throughout all this, but also this was an awesome issue.
Yes.
Just to get you to know that these guys, you talk about the deep space stuff. On one hand, part of me was thinking of it kind of like a Secret Six in space, where these are kind of good guys, but they do kill. These are killers. But are they killing only bad people, or are they killing not so bad people? It's that whole what is good, what is bad type of story. These guys are definitely taking a life. They're not Superman. They're not Batman. They don't have the no-kill code. They've got no problem with that, and they're pretty nasty with it. And you see them dealing with the troopers, and I love that one scene where they're looking at the guy like, hey, did you ever get a choice? No, I never got a choice. You ever get a choice? No, I never got a choice. We're going to do something you've never done. We're going to give you the choice. And the officer's like, and he, bam, shoots himself. Like, good choice. Because it was just kind of like whoa kind of moment for me. And that was the kind of the part that linked it back to, you remember some stuff from Secret Six going, yeah, because the Six have done stuff like that. Just 13 seconds, you guardians of slaves. That whole bit where she's like, hey, I'm going to kill you now. I'm going to give you time to call a loved one, maybe say a prayer, do what you're going to do, but you're about to die. And I love just that kind of mindset. Again, we're seeing that here. It's not the same stories, obviously, but it is that same type of good, bad questioning. What side of the obviously it looks like the one side of these the good guys, but can you really call them good guys? Can you not? I don't know. And I think for me is going into this, not knowing anything, I think that's part of the excitement that we're getting latched into the main characters. We're getting latched into these heroes, and I'm backing these guys right now. But in my head, I'm going, hey, I don't have all the information yet. Let's see where this goes. Are these really the good guys or are these the bad guys? And I like having that mystery.
Do we need that defined?
No. Because it's not defined in life. And I think that's kind of neat. Also, that this is outer space, future world, that aliens that look like tigers and big rocks and whatnot, but it still has that same type of core beliefs and stuff that we're dealing with. You ask anybody involved in any type of revolution, resistance movement, anyone on either side, who's right, who's wrong, they will each swear up and down, hey, we're right, here's why they're wrong.
Right.
And it's that same, we're seeing that in the story. Right now, the main people we're following through are the Omega Men, so we're kind of seeing stuff from their point of view. But as the story plays out, any good political story, and we've seen Tom King write good type of political stories. We've seen him do this type of stuff and other stuff he's done. So this is something I'm really looking forward to, him telling this story, because I know it's not just going to be some really cool stuff where people get limbs ripped off and whatnot. We're going to get those political intrigue. We're going to get that kind of that scientific type of psychology type of stories behind the politics.
Well, when you're on the run, but also when you're trying to face off against an overwhelming power, a lot of times a split-second decision is the difference between survival and dying, and you start to develop a sense of what is morally right and what is not. Tend to get very blurred very fast. And you sometimes don't have the time to make that choice and go, well, morally, I want to do this. Well, you don't have that time. You just have to, go and do it. And that's what survival is all about. And sometimes the greater good, what you consider the greater good, you consider your purpose and your direction and what you're trying to do, outweighs that. It's a very interesting world. And I'm loving this book right out of the starting gate because of that. Because what's got me interested is, first of all, I'm very interested in the Omega Men, because I'm getting to know them for the first time. I don't have a lot of baggage coming into this. And I'm actually very curious if anybody listening to this is a big Omega Men fan and you've read them in the past. I would love to hear from you as far as how do you like this and how does this compare to your thinking about them? Because I'm a fan of revamps. Like we're going to be talking over the next couple of weeks about characters that have been revamped and changed and reimagined and rethought. Lobo is a big one, actually, that's been reimagined and rethought. And I knew enough about, compared to my understanding of the Omega Men, I had a great understanding of what Lobo was all about. I just can't compare my reading experience with a lot of Lobo's solo books. But I think he was such a well-defined character that if you were reading comics during the era that Lobo was created, you read some crossover with him that really got it right and you know who Lobo is. The Omega Men, I don't have that feeling with. I didn't know a lot about them, so I'm kind of walking in a blank slate, other than I'm familiar with the characters and the concept, sort of. This is really great because not only do I want to see more of the Omega Men, not only do I want to see more of who they're opposing, but when you're talking about politics, where it's a lot of fun is, who are the people that are supporting the people that the Omega Men are against, the political ideologies that they're against? Who are the people that are supporting the Omega Men, or that concept? Who are the other people that are trying to survive this or rebel against this? And then who are the people that fall in the middle? Because that's usually the larger audience, and sometimes they don't know what to think, and it's your choices can sometimes bring them over to your side or push them the other way. So that middle crowd is often they could become your biggest allies, or they could become your biggest threat. And I think that's a part where there's a lot of open storytelling in this Omega Men. It can go a lot of different directions. as they encounter new worlds, new people, for those that are familiar, it's going to become people maybe you could trust last year are not necessarily trustworthy now. People that were your most bitter rivals 5 years ago might be your best friends now because of circumstance. That makes for an interesting story. And that's what this book has got me excited for potential from it, right out of the starting gate. And I do want to comment on one thing, and I know you're ready to go to something, and I apologize. The art is stunning in this book. The writing is amazing, but the art is also stunning. This book's got a great creative team, and that always has me because it's a different looking book than anything else I'm reading right now, and I quite like that when there's something new on the market and it's something that I haven't wrapped my head around before. I like when you throw an art style at me that I'm not familiar with, and that's one of the reasons why I'm glad we got a chance to not only poorly shout out the creative team, and that's not on you. I would have done that well worse than you did. I really think this team gets it. The concept that they're trying to deliver, and it's a stylized book. It's something that I really like. It's something I'm grown accustomed to when Tom King's name's attached to a book. Because, we got Grayson. Grayson has a very cool, unique art style to it that matches, I think, the style of that book. Omega Men, I would argue, very different art style than Grayson, but boy, does this art style match this book. Kudos to everybody involved because it's a very stylized book. One issue in, it's got me, I can't, I'm still questioning this title. I'm trying to wrap my head around everything that's going on here. I like that. I want to know more. I think off the page with this book. I'm trying to figure out on the page with this book a lot of times on what's going on here because there's a lot happening. It's delivering political ideologies, and I want to know more. And I'm sorry, please go ahead. I know there's some things you want to say, but I'm going to have diarrhea of the mouth with this because I really love this book.
Well, it was funny because the thing I was going to say was, as much as I agree with how much I'm loving the story that's being told and just the strategery behind the different factions, and because it's not just big giant cat rips people's arms off, there is some strategy, there is some style behind everybody and what they're doing. I also wanted to make sure we talked about the artwork, because this is an absolute beautiful book. And again, my butchery of names has nothing to do with lack of respect for the creative process, because this is one of those stories that I have zero exposure to the characters, really. So I'm starting ground floor with the Omega Men with this. This is my Omega Men. This is the team that I know now. And so going into that, having a look that's a little bit different, a little bit art style to it, I'm like, hey, this is kind of neat. Yes. The fact that I just went from Superman. I just went from, the Bat titles. I went from the Batman, all the different ones that have a pretty good similar to something that's going bam, kind of like it's that shift, just out of nowhere going, ooh, okay. Yeah, different story, different type of people, different look. I like it. Yes. I like the fact that it is fitting. The fact that I'm going into the unknown, so I've got a little bit different art style than what I'm getting in the other books that I'm loving. So I'm glad to have those differentiations in the story being told, in the visual stylings that I'm getting. This is some cool stuff happening, and I'm very happy with the look, with the story, with what I'm getting out of this. This is, you mentioned how Tom King, we know his style, we trust him. He's on that list for me of people where if I see his name on a book, I'm going to pick it up, I'm going to give it a read through, just because I like his style of writing, and especially now, once I see this isn't just about, a big guy's, beating people up. There's got to be something more to it that really has me intrigued, because I really like that his political intrigue, his spy work, his variations. So I want to see him handle a revolution. I want to see him do this type of stuff. This is, this is a creator that, okay, this is something I want to see from him. So I'm very happy, very excited on Omega Men.
I really recommend people read his book, A Once Crowded Sky. We had him on to talk about that book. And one of the things that I really enjoy about looking at his work and in that, he really dealt with a wide variety of superheroes and the concept of it in that book. So it's a good book to read to kind of wrap your head around, like, how does this guy see, superhero archetypes and things like that? And he did a really nice job with that. Also his Valiant shorts. There is a series of Valiant short story books that are out there, and they're available for the Kindle. I think they're the Kindle I forget what the name of them is. They're Kindle shorts. But if you do a search under Kindle for Tom King, you will see these Valiant shorts that they created, and it was a line of Kindle books. And he takes each of the Valiant characters' concepts, and he does his own short stories with them. He did 2 of them that I read. I don't remember if he did more than that, but the 2 that I read were really, really fantastic. There was a Harbinger one in particular that I really enjoyed from Tom King. And he's just a great writer. I'm really digging his stuff. And like you said, Jim, he's a name that I'll follow. And this type of book is exactly why he's a name that I'll follow. I love that Tigor, if you take a look at him when he's coming out of there, the grrr and all that, you actually see the Omega symbol is tattooed on his body.
Yeah.
Which I want to know more about that. How did that happen? Was that a choice? Was that his choice? Or was he branded that as a traitor or, a terrorist or whatever? They're looking at it. I don't know which. And I could see that going either way very comfortably because of the way that this group is reacting to each other.
It's interesting you mentioned that because I wasn't thinking he was branded it as a terrorist or a traitor. I was thinking that's something he did because, hey, you're not going to, a guy like him, you're not just going to, brand him unless, he lets it happen. But you think about it, there could be a whole other political story behind it. That's kind of neat. That never entered my head again. I'm like, man, I want to know about that now.
And I'm very comfortable with it going either way. And actually, I agree with everything you said about him. But here's the thing. They've all been through something. And everything they've been through is very unique, and that's what's brought them together. And even this coming together of them, if you see it, this is very new for them on this level. For some of them, it's a gathering together again. In other cases, this is something they're still feeling out. I like being in this spot with them. I feel like I'm coming together with them, if that makes sense. And I'm trying to decide, do I want to be on this team? Or do I just want to watch them from a distance, if that makes sense? And I think that's true of a revolution. You know what I mean? How am I? Because I haven't had enough time with them yet to decide whether or not I believe in them or agree with them. Taking Kyle in a box and threatening to kill him on camera when I'm a Kyle fan is probably not a good way to get me on board, but you got me interested. You got me watching. And I like that. I mean, I like that this book feels different.
Looking at the other people, seeing if any of them have brands on them or anything like that, and I don't see any initially. So part of me is thinking that was self-imposed by him, but
I don't know though, because they're all wearing a lot more stuff.
This book, I really do like I've said before, savage beauty or the beauty of the gore. Just that kind of where you've got this carnage, and you've got this crazy bloodshed, violence, but if an art team does it right, they can make it actually look beautiful. And this one really did some really cool stuff with with the violence. I dig this. I'm liking the look.
Yeah. One of the things you said earlier that I think I really like about this book is the idea that you don't know which side to choose. You don't know enough yet. That part of the politics of this has me really interested. And you don't know if they're good guys or not. And I don't know that I ever need that clearly defined. If it is, here's the thing. I am very content to let the creative team take this book where they're going to go with it. They've got a plan. It's really clear from this first issue. There's a big plan in place. And this was really, I look at this issue as a prologue to the story to get you really pulled in. Because, when they're taking the box out there and you hear this thump, 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 thump. I, not having read the sneak preview first, because I was with you, I was totally in the place where the sneak previews, I'm like, I thought they were just going to be pages of the book. So I read a bunch of them, but I didn't read all of them. I deliberately didn't read Omega Men because I figured, I don't want to read some of the pages before I read the book. I want to just read the book. And this was a week 1 title. So it wasn't until the week 1 titles came out and I was reading them, wait a minute, the sneak preview isn't here. I started realizing that, I'm mistaken in my understanding of what these teasers were. And I read the Kyle Rayner video after reading this issue. And I want to know how he got there. What happened that Kyle Rayner wound up in a box?
Yeah. How do you trap a White Lantern?
Yes.
How do you do that? And in the end, there you see them. It's funny because they're sitting there saying, "Hey, calm down. Don't worry. We're your friends. We're not going to hurt you." But that was the line.
Oh yeah.
That the alphas were using when they were killing people. So you can't completely believe what they're saying.
No, I don't know where this is. I don't know where this is going to go. I'm very, very interested in this series. It's very crucial in your first issue to get that right. You need to hook me. Kyle Rayner at the end in the shadows with the little light. We just get the picture of him calling for Carol.
Yeah.
Not knowing his story. We didn't know if he was alive or dead or what was alive or dead in the box. And that was brilliant. I mean, they had me hooked. And then when I read the sneak preview, I'm like, oh my gosh, if I'd read this first, I don't know if I would have been better served reading the preview first or not. It reads very differently, I'm sure, if you knew that Kyle Rayner was there. Although in your case, you didn't connect it.
Yeah, I didn't connect it. You know, it was one of those things where like you, when I read it, I didn't completely pay it. I'll be honest, I didn't completely pay attention because I was thinking, oh, these are just going to be sneak peeks of it. And I remember reading it after I started reading Omega Men, you know, the issue 1 where they're mentioning Kyle Rayner, like, oh yeah, they had something with Kyle, and didn't they kidnap? And I didn't completely remember everything. There was something with Kyle, but I didn't remember the whole story, so I didn't know Kyle was in the box, you know. And it's just one of those things where, again, I wasn't really paying attention when I read the sneak peek, you know, and I wish I had, because I think that would have been kind of an interesting read, having gone from that to this.
Yeah, I don't... Oof.
But I still love the story not having that. That's the thing. The strength of issue 1, so then going back and rereading that sneak peek, it's that little accentuates, you know, the story. With all of these books, I'm going back and rereading that sneak peek. I'm glad, you know, that it's out there and I can get just download those and actually see those, and kind of, instead of having to go through and finding the issue, you know, in the actual Convergence titles.
Yeah, exactly. You know, Jim, let's go ahead. We got a voicemail here that I think applies to a lot more of what we're talking about here, and I'd like to go to that before we close up this episode.
Hi, this is Jack from Redlands, and I want to say that, Sean, hi, first off, hi, Sean and Jim. But what I wanted to call about was the Superman action comic. I just got the first issue of the new setup. Now, I stupidly did not read the 8-page preview to it, so I was totally taken off guard. But I think this is going to be a great story. I mean, I've heard a lot of flack from different podcasters, and they're all mad about the, you know, not having the costume and things like that. But I read it, and I think that Clark definitely behaves like Superman, and I think it's kind of cool to have him depowered for a little while. It's not going to be permanent, but just for a little while. I'm really enjoying it, and I was curious, especially Jim, who's a big Superman guy, what you think about it. And then the other two that I read that I wanted to hold on, the truck is back. Sorry about that. The other two I wanted to talk about was Batmite and Bizarro. I found them both very funny, but I don't think they could survive an ongoing series, so I'm very happy that they were 6 issues. I was wondering what you guys thought about the new Superman setup, and if you guys found those two books as amusing as I did. Anyway, thanks a lot. Talk to you later. Bye.
First of all, I want to make sure Jack's okay, because it sounded like he went through a portal. You know, it's like Sliders or something like that. Where's Jack now? He brings up some interesting points, and we already talked on this episode, I think, obviously about our feelings about what they've done with Superman and all that. I saw some of the backlash, too. I don't get it. I really am convinced a lot of people make judgments without reading the material. Now, I've seen reviews before where there's people who are old school fans who don't like it, and they've got legitimate, well spelled out reasons where, you know, they have a preference as far as what they like in their Superman storytelling. And these are arguably people who probably haven't been big fans of the New 52 Superman in general, just because it's been a shift, especially with the way that people react to Superman. And you know what? I don't know that I have an argument for that. That's your taste and your interests. You've actually read the material and you've made your own judgment based on material you've read. I quite like that and respect that, and we just have a difference of opinion. I've been a long-time reader. I know I represent myself as kind of, you I'm not a Superman guy. I've read Superman since I was a little kid. I had the Treasury edition of Superman versus Muhammad Ali and stuff like that. I read lots of Superman growing up and Supergirl. So I really have. I am more of a Batman guy, but I think I represent myself a lot of times as not having a big Superman background. One of my favorite books growing up was DC Comics Presents, because it was a team-up book of Superman with a bunch of other people, just the way I like Brave and the Bold. So I am a Superman guy. You are, though, more, out of the two of us, you came into this podcast as being the Superman fan who enjoys Batman, whereas I'm the Batman fan that enjoys Superman. So for you, it's interesting always to hear your perspective on status quo changes with Superman and what you buy into and why, because I think your buy-in point is a little different than mine because of your clearly different understanding of the character.
Yeah. I think, it's one of those, I don't know, I've always had the dun-da-da moment. I like that in the hero. And so for me, when you do, as I said early in the podcast, when you get the power down Superman, I'm always like, I don't know, but when you get the great stories that are told, and I mentioned Up, and Away, where Jeff Johns, the way he handled the power down Superman was absolutely wonderful. In the Convergence titles, when you've got the power down Superman where he's still trying to be Superman, those are great stuff. We've got a power down Superman who is still Superman. He's still knuckling up. He's still doing what's right, and he's still helping people. And he may not be able to do it as easily as he did before, but he's still going to be Superman. This, in his heart and soul, in his core, this is the guy. And it's one of those things, seeing, and you brought up the really good point about it's great to see the different parts of the universe handle, whether they like or hate him. Yes. But the best part is his reaction to them. And we're seeing true Superman reactions to the world around him. And I think that, for me, complete kudos to creative teams who are handling Superman right now. I am very, very happy with the Superman stuff, and I'm very excited for where this is going to go, what kind of stories we've got out there. And it's just, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to this.
I am too. I'm looking very forward to seeing where this story goes. He shifts to talking about two series that we didn't talk about, two mini-series, I should say, Batmite and Bizarro. And he talks about how they were very entertaining and fun series, but he likes that they're mini-series. I agree with him. I actually like that they're a contained mini-series with a story that's very contained. I found them to be very fun. It reminds me of Kyle Baker's work on things like Plastic Man, which I really enjoyed. I thought it was fun. I like that they're minis, and I'm hoping that they do well, because I would like more minis like this, whether it's more Bizarro and Batmite or more other characters in this vein. I think they work very well as contained. Like both of these, I think, will be nice hardbound volumes that you can give to people. And, I'm thinking back, classroom teacher me. I like that they're stories that I'm enjoying right now, but also I would not hesitate to give these to kids. And there's something to that. Batmite in particular, what I love is Batman's reaction to him. He's so dismissive of Batmite. It's such an annoyance to him, which we see that with Batman with other characters. Like we've seen it with Batman over the years with Spoiler, for example, where these people that lead to being a distraction to him getting his mission done, they aren't efficient. They are slowing him down. He has no time or patience for that, because what he's dealing with is insurmountable. So Batmite being there, Batmite is his Mitch's Pitlick, and that's one of those things where I get it. It's Batman's kind of like, enough of you. I love that I find Batmite charming, though, and that his story is quite interesting. Did you like that? Here's the thing. For you, I think you and I have a different sort of thought process in these type of stories, but I may be wrong. How did you feel about these two books?
No, you're not wrong. We have different thought processes.
Did you like them?
Well, I like the fact that they are the limited series. If these were ongoing, I would give it a shot and I would give it a read through, just because, I never want to judge, but, this isn't my cup of tea. There were times where I have to admit, there were times I did chuckle, and there were a couple times, and it's a good story being told, but it's not really my cup of tea. It's just because it's a mini series, I'm picking them up, but it's not anything I think long term I would want to go with, just because it's, I don't know. Yeah, when I read them, I was like, okay, let's see what we got here. And, I liked funny. I do enjoy funny side of it. Like, you think back to, how I talk about my palate cleansers, and the funny comics make great palate cleansers. But there's such a variety out there of books that I don't need to go this way. Like, think back to Tiny Titans.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely love that book. I cheered with it. I laughed. I cried. It was an amazing story, and I was really digging just the humor behind it, partially because there was those inside stories, those inside things that I know because I read the regular comics, and just the nods and the respects to and the tie to and that. I was like, that was a really cool story. So I like that style, and I like, funny style. It's just, I don't know. Right now, I've got so much out there that I don't need the Batmite, and I don't need the Bizarro.
I do.
And so for me, it's kind of tough going into it that I don't need to have these stories.
I do. See, I'm. This is where, and actually, the Tiny Titans is the itch that this scratches for me. I like that this reads like a cartoon. I love classic cartoons. I love Looney Tunes. I love Disney cartoons. Chip and Dale's one of my favorite. Goofy. Those are the ones, like sports shorts and things like that they used to do with Goofy. I'm into that kind of stuff. I don't want all of my books like this. It's an itch, that needs to be scratched, and these do it. And I agree with this point. I think these work as minis, and I think there'll be volumes that you can contain. I do go back to the Kyle Baker stuff. I think Tiny Titans, your comparison there, bringing that in, I think is really great. It's silly, fun. It embraces what Bizarro is. Bizarro is very challenging to talk to, and I love that Jimmy Olsen in this was the MVP in the Bizarro issue in particular, because Jimmy's reactions and his honest reactions to Bizarro, like, this is Superman's buddy, and he's driving along with Bizarro and trying to contain him, because if you don't keep a leash on Bizarro, he's going to wreak havoc on the world. So Jimmy's kind of trying to be that tether, and it's a very dangerous thing to take upon yourself. The art style is perfect for me because it so matches a cartoon. Like, this is a 30-minute cartoon. And I'm reading it that way, and I'm really enjoying that, and I'm going to get 6 cartoons out of this, and in the end kind of go, ooh, I really enjoyed it from a cartoon perspective. And I love the art style choices for that purpose, and the writing choices for that purpose. It's silly while at the same time having an interesting story going on. I love that there's this pharaoh guy who's got this ability to mesmerize people into buying cars and all this kind of, it's money. It's a money maker. And you've got, if there's one person who you like, Bizarro, you're going to have Bizarro deal with a mentalist. Well, first of all, how are you going to hypnotize this guy? He's already bonkers. I love the premise. It really works for me. It's fun. It's silly. And from that end of it, I had a feeling when I was reading this, I'm like, I don't know where Jim's going to be at. I'm digging this. I don't know where Jim's going to be in the same place that I am with this book. And it's okay. I find it fun.
And here's the thing with that whole, with the Pharaoh, with the mind control thing, the thing I absolutely loved about, and I agree with you, it's kind of funny, just the fact that a mentalist is dealing with Bizarro. Mm-hmm. That's going to be interesting to see how he handles it. But the part that really cracked me up and had me laughing was the fact that he summoned the ancient thing, and it turned out to be those aliens. They're like, hey, did you see that guy bought it? And they're laughing about the fact that they tricked this human into buying that they were these ancient aliens. And to them, it was just a goofy, fun thing they did. And I like that. That had me chuckling, going, okay, that's kind of funny that how they pulled this off and where he's actually getting this and the fact that it was aliens and whatnot. I thought that was a really funny piece to have inside this goofy Bizarro title.
By the way, Colin, the Chupacabra or whatever he was, I loved that. Because I love when Jimmy's yelling at him. You know what, Colin?
Yeah.
I don't want to hear it from you. I mean, that stuff was great. So, I mean, I think one of the real things I appreciated about Bizarro so much, humor I think is very hard to do on a comic book page nowadays. I think, I'm very used to, I love Sunday comics. I love reading Sunday funnies. And I think those are very hard to do too. In 3 panels, 4 panels, whatever, or one big panel, a lot of times to be able to tell a joke and get the punchline right and keep you interested and keep a story kind of ongoing, and that I think is very hard to do. And I think there's those ones that are a classic and iconic, your Garfields, your Calvin and Hobbes and stuff like that do it well. And there's other ones that, like, I find that I'm not interested in. But we all have favorites that we follow, right? this is that vein. It's that itch for me, and yet they're doing it in a full-blown comic book. This is like Tom Zoller's work, which I really like in things like Love and Capes and stuff like that. Tom's able to do this kind of satire real well, or this kind of humor real well, and I think it works. This is that vein for me, so it feels like what Love and Capes does for me as well. So I like this kind of stuff. It needs to fit into, like, it's a certain itch. Yeah. That it fills for me, and I think they've done it very well for this. So Bizarro worked for me.
Yeah, and I don't want anyone to think I'm knocking it, saying it's not good, because it is good. It's just, I don't know, for some reason, I'm not in that place. I don't need that itch for me. But there is some funny stuff, and you talk about the Chupacabra. That was one that first time read through, I was like, what? And then, but my second and third read through is like, I was kind of chuckling with the fact that Jimmy Olsen is having this conversation with this thing that probably doesn't understand a single word he's saying, but does he? I don't know. You never really know with this universe if you're going to actually get that, or in the end, is that going to turn out to be something else that's intelligent and will know exactly what's going on?
I loved Batmite, and I'm going to say that in a way that I'm shocked how much I loved Batmite. The reason why is I walked in that going, okay, here's the thing. As a kid growing up, when Batmite was on television, I know you already mentioned you didn't like that when it was on the cartoon. That wasn't your cup of tea. I did. I liked that. I was very I was very Batman happy at that time. Having Batmite on there and the whole Batman cartoon, I really loved that cartoon. I was of that age where it was like targeted to me. I was into it and all that. The problem is, as I've gotten older, I haven't really rewatched those cartoons, and I want to. I want to go back and see them. But I'm kind of like, is my memory going to be tarnished by seeing that because of the fact that I'm older now and I'm going to kind of see it for what it was and how silly Batman was? So I walked into this with that kind of mentality going, I like the creative. It's Dan Jurgens writing it, so I'm kind of like, oh, well, I'm in because of Dan Jurgens. I don't know how I'm going to feel about this, but okay. As we were reading the whole story, what worked for me was Batman's utter annoyance over him. Just and dismissiveness of it. And Batmite's looking to he's like the little, look at me. I'm here. I'm doing my thing. I'm useful. I'm going to be cool. And just to kind of the whole, I found it very, very funny. And here's the thing. There's a connected story going on here that I found that really worked for me. Batmite accidentally finds himself caught up in things. Before he gets to that, though, before he was actually gassed and taken away, I loved the selfie bit where he goes to take the selfie with Batman, and Batman's already gone because he needs to take care of the victim and make sure that they're safe. That's what Batman does. That leaves Batmite over to be gassed, taken away, and now he's with Dr. Trauma, who's looking to put her brain, or his brain, or whoever Dr. Trauma originally was, inside a new body. And this nurse that's helping Dr. Trauma has already had this procedure done, at least once. So this is a thing that they do. And they're looking at Batmite and going, first of all, they're looking at Batmite as a throwaway, like who wants to be this small little imp? But, with his powers and things like that, maybe somebody would pay for that, and this might be a throwaway where people might want this kind of procedure. So they keep him for that purpose. In the end, it turns out like Batmite, thinks he's getting smarter than you can be. It turns out that the ending part I loved was they had Hawkman in there, and that was one of the bodies that they wanted to try and take, was Hawkman's body, to try and get. Why wouldn't you want to be Hawkman, the reincarnating guy, right? Yeah. That's the kind of body that you would want to take at that point. I will say this, and I'm going to say it again. I do not like that version of the Hawkman outfit. The gold, it's too clean. I like the gritty version that we've gotten, like, New 52 Futures End, that Hawkman we got in there, I thought was perfect. That costume. I hope if they can do one thing with this story by the end, show why he gets a different costume.
Well, I'm thinking this is in regular continuity, so you don't have to worry about this Hawkman, this costume.
I would be fine with this being the origin of the new Hawkman costume in Batmite.
Yeah. It was funny because when I was reading this, I'm going, oh, okay, and again, same type of deal with the Bizarro. It's really not my cup of tea, but I don't want to knock the story being told because stuff you said did have me chuckling with the selfie and all that. And it was, but that ending when I saw Hawkman, I'm like, oh boy, we're talking about this one now, because it makes you wonder, how did Hawkman get caught? Because I could see capturing Batmite because he's not the brightest bulb in the bunch, but how did Hawkman get caught? And it's just, who's ordered the Hawkman body? Sean, was that you? Because that was my first thought, that Sean ordered a Hawkman body. And
not with that outfit.
He's going to have his brain transplanted into the Hawkman body.
Well, I could fix the costume then.
Yeah,
because that came out of his head, right? Because that's the nth metal morphing the way that Hawkman kind of... Right. Oh, that's true. I could fix that.
Yeah, so it'll be your head, brain put into the Hawkman body, so you'll be the new Hawkman.
I'm in.
That'd work for you, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would do that. I just say, sorry, you've abused this body for too long.
Yeah.
So that would be my motivation for that. Actually, I do have a motivation for that. So I guess I would be supervillain for that purpose.
But would you be true supervillain because you're doing it for the greater good?
I would redeem myself.
Yeah.
I would redeem myself. I would say that he made me do it. That's where I'd go with that. I'd say that wasn't my choice. It was poor taste that forced me into this situation. I would be like Superior Spider-Man, where I'd start off as the villain, but partway through I'd try to be the better Hawkman, if that makes sense. So it would be on that end.
How'd that work for Superior Spider-Man?
Peter Parker's back. Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I'd get like a 12-issue run. Is how I'd look at it like that. And then they'd realize it's like the, whole love interest with Shira thing's better if Carter's there. So, because she'd mace me upside the head, recognizing that I'm not clearly not Carter. So, yeah, you're right. I mean, it would not go well for me at all.
And then Mariah would go, let me borrow that. King.
Oh, sure. Yeah, exactly. She'd get mad because there'd be feathers all over the furniture and stuff. It would not be a happy thing.
Well, the cats would love it, though.
Yeah. You're right. The cats would think it's really cool and would dig it. But no, it's an interesting thing. These very much read like Saturday morning cartoons for me. And I have very fond memories of Saturday morning cartoons. It's a gap that I think with the block being gone, because that to me was the whole thing with it. I'd watch all of them. I love Thundar and the Herculoids and all that kind of stuff. I love silly stuff like when Heathcliff was on and those type of things. I liked all of Saturday morning cartoons. I always would flip between channels. I remember watching them growing up with my stepdad. And it was, when I say growing up, I mean, I watched it well into whenever I was watching them when they stopped it, because I just liked that concept of a cartoon block. And you get up on Saturday mornings, that's what you do. So This fills that itch for me. It very much is Saturday morning cartoons. I'm into that. I love the drama that they're putting in there as a cartoon. They read like a 30-minute cartoon. And I don't know. I'm into it for that purpose. I agree with him on them being good limited series. I think that's the route for these kind of things. And I hope they reach an interesting new target audience, because I think there's a different audience for this that you can hit. I'm always leery because it always sounds like you're diminishing something when you point to it and say you should market it to kids. Because it's always like you're sitting there saying, well, it's not quite as up to the standards of our more highbrow adult comics. I don't mean it that way. I do think that they are it's like Pixar. I'm a big Pixar fan. And I love your deep, hard-hitting action movies that are more geared towards adults as well. But this harkens to what I enjoy about Pixar. It's like something for everybody. It's all ages. I would enjoy this with kids. I would give this to my nieces and I wouldn't hesitate. I would give this to my nephew and I wouldn't hesitate. And the same thing with the Bizarro stuff. So I like the fact that everybody could enjoy this, but I would give it to my friends who, I've got friends of mine who I know are collectors of comic strips. Calvin and Hobbes in particular. They love that kind of stuff. This would be the kind of thing I would give a gift to them. They don't read the traditional comics that we read. Like the story going on with Superman right now, in Truth, they wouldn't be interested in. But they collect like Crankshaft and stuff like that. They actually have binders of Sunday morning cartoons that they've kept over the years. And, the weekly cartoons from the Plain Dealer and things, our local paper that they collect. So they've always been into that kind of thing. So this would be the avenue I would go with them. And just, Marmaduke, stuff like that, Family Circus. This is definitely something that you could bridge out to people interested in that, and it's a new kind of book for them. It's a different sort of avenue. So I'm glad they're doing this, and I hope it finds success. I think these type of experiments are always good when you reach your current crowd with them, but you also find a unique way to reach out to a different sort of crowd. Anybody who grew up with Batmite, though, that loved the character, welcome home. Because this worked for me. I loved Batmite as a kid. And I thought that it wouldn't hold up for me. The way they did this, it held up for me. It worked. I knew we'd be different on this, though. Yeah. I would have been in shock if we weren't. Just because I know you have a different sort of vibe and flavor. But isn't that the point, though, of, in the end of the day, when you look at your pull list, you got to take a look at the books and kind of go, okay, what are in my wheelhouse and what aren't? I think you knew going into this that this probably wasn't going to be in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, going into this, I was thinking, and that's one of the things I got to watch. So I don't want to do self-fulfilling prophecies because I do enjoy the cartoons. I do enjoy the comic style. As I said, just everything. There's a lot of this stuff I do enjoy. It just, I don't know. And I can't even say that it's bad because this wasn't bad. This was good writing. This was funny stuff. There was some stuff that I was laughing about. I was chuckling about on both of the books, but it just, I don't know. It just, as I said, it's just not my cup of tea. I can't say bad, but I'm not going, yay, this is awesome. Like how I was gushing over the Bat Books action. Even Lobo, I was, saying, man, this is some really cool stuff. Omega Man, I was gushing about those things because I had a connection to it. I had a passion and a fire for it. These were entertaining. You pick it up, you read, you'll laugh. They're good miniseries. This is something that I think, when they do a collected edition, you can give those to gifts for people. That'd be kind of a neat thing to do with. There's a lot of stuff they can do with these things, and there's a lot of people who will enjoy them.
The animation fan in me likes both of these, and I think for a lot of the reasons I went through very quickly my reasons why I enjoyed them. But in your case, let me ask you, let's just go one series at a time. Bizarro. You, a lot of times, because of the fact that the podcast we do, you will pick up and finish series based on the show. Are you going to continue picking that up? First of all, are you going to continue picking it up? And then second of all, are you picking it up for the show? Or are you picking it up because there was enough of a hook in it that you're like, I do kind of want to see the ending of it? And there's no right or wrong answer there. Let's just take Bizarro. Where are you at on that one?
Well, I've been getting them because DCBS is doing some great bundles, and they're included within the bundles.
Okay.
So I've ordered, through issue 3 because it's been included within bundles. And if it weren't included within the bundles, I don't know if I would get it, to be honest with you.
Okay.
It's, again, as I said, it's just not my groove right now. And I don't, so I don't know if I would be getting it, but because it's in those bundles that I'm getting, I'm ordering it and I'm continuing on. But I'm not going to take, because one, it's a good deal to get, even if you're getting one or two titles that you don't want to, you wouldn't normally get. It's still a better deal to go with the bundle. And I'm going to I'll save a little bit more.
And the book pays for itself being in the bundle.
Right.
Mm-hmm. What about Batmite?
Same thing.
Okay, so both the same. I didn't know if one of the two maybe stood out for you more, that you were more interested in or not. For me, I would be in on both regardless. I like that they're minis. I actually agree with his comments very much that they're minis. I think these work as minis. And I think when you're doing stuff like this, I'm glad that they made choices that certain things were definite ongoings and certain things were minis. I would like these to be a series of minis where, kind of like what they do with Earth 1, for example. They come out periodically. They do something new. Maybe next time it's not always Batmite or Bizarro. It's something else. I would read a book about Colin. I did. See, that's what I mean. I can throw out stuff like that and go, you know what? I really was entertained by that. I will say if I'm picking out of the two, which one I lean more towards, Bizarro for me. I think the whole riding around with Jimmy Olsen bit in there, I found that very funny and very entertaining. Batmite was nostalgia for me. It was a nostalgia fest. So Bizarro gets a slight leap ahead for me, but both of these I'm looking at it as I've got a cartoon block with these two right now. I'm in. I like the cartoon block, and it really is. I'm viewing these very differently than any other books that I'm reading. They fill a cartoon block. They might get stockpiled along the way, and I don't mean that in a bad way. That happens sometimes with minis for me. I will read them and I will enjoy them just because of the nature of them. So they fit in that category, but there's a validity to them. There's something different in my list, and that's why I like them for their differences. But I knew we'd be in a different place for it, and that's kind of the funny part of it.
Yeah,
it's a good call. And I hope he's okay wherever he got transported to.
Yes, I hope everything's fine.
Holy caffeine!
I want to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or drnorge on Skype. We love having you part of the show, so feel free to call in with your thoughts on anything we've discussed this episode or things we haven't gotten to. If there's things that you're interested in, you want to shout it out and get your own thoughts on the podcast, we welcome any thoughts about anything relating to our comic material. I want to shout out our Facebook group. We have a wonderful Facebook group, and we have a Facebook fan page, but we also have a Facebook group community that's filled with amazing people that love talking comics, pop culture, you name it. And it's a safe group. It's so far beyond. We share it with infantcomics.com, and it's really the community of people that are there that keep it going. They're the superstars over there, and I highly recommend stopping by, checking it out. There's ways, if you don't like to get constant emails from Facebook groups, go into the settings and shut those off. A lot of people I know have been turned off by Facebook groups because of the emails that you get. Remember, you have a lot of control in the settings to decide how it behaves in relation to you. So I encourage you to join Facebook groups, especially ours, because they're fun communities to go in and chat about topics that interest you. These guys catch news articles and share out blogs and things that are of interest to our entire community. And they often do fan chats about television shows and movies and things. So, join that community and be a part of the great discussion going on there. And just a shout out to the really cool people that are in that community, because I can't be more proud to be associated with this group of people. So I want to shout that out. RagingBullets.com is our show website. That's where you're going to find information on upcoming episodes. Because of the jobs that Jim and I have, we've been doing this now for almost 10 years. We're heading toward our 10th anniversary next March. But, Jim and I have really kind of been juggling, making sure we want to keep the podcast going, and we're really doing our best to become a 4-episode a month podcast, to continue being that. The website's a place to find out about our releases, also where we're at on editing. I post updates, if there's delays on the show release because of life. I want you to be aware, because we value you. We value the time that you give us to listen to the podcast, so that's the place to get news on what's going on the show. We're going to keep doing it. We love it. We love talking to you, so it's a way for you to find out more news on what's going on. It does link to our Twitter, so if you're a Twitter fan, great way to find updates on the show. We also have Google Plus pages that you can find us on, so whatever social media you like, you can get there. I have a PlayStation Network account. Feel free to add me on there. I would love to connect with you. Hopefully we can do some gaming together at some point in time. I really love being a part of that community as well. That's our show. DCBService.com. Jim, tell us about it.
They're doing some really cool stuff this month. Normally, they have their normal wonderful bundles, 50% off, the new and returning titles. Always check those out. But they're taking some of these great animated stories that they've done, and they're pairing it up with a hardcover edition of the original stories. And I'm talking Batman Black and White, Death of Superman. We've got Wonder Woman, Gods and War, Justice League Origin, JLA Earth 2, Batman Year 1. Each of those individual ones, $17.54, or because they are the great home of bundles, you can get all 6 together, $94.89.
That's great stuff. And I want to shout out, too, that they are a digital partner. So whether you do Comixology or My Digital Comics, you're going to want to make sure to link those accounts. You get 5% of those purchases towards your DCB service order. Remember, when you do your shopping on those sites, to go through the DCB service portal, because when you go through that portal, they get credit for you shopping there. It doesn't cost you anything more, but then you get credit on your account for shopping there through their portal. It's a great way to support our show sponsor by making purchases you're already making. So it doesn't cost you anything more to do it, but it does link your purchase to that account there and gives you something back, which is always cool. I'm a big fan of getting something more back, and it's a great way to support a sponsor who supports a great deal of podcasts. Over at InStockTrades.com, they have their amazing deals of the week, such as Absolute Transmetropolitan hardcover, $62.50. That's 50% off. Also, the Batgirl of Burnside, Volume 1 hardcover, $12.49. That's also 50% off. They have classic trade paperbacks there as well, such as Batman Cataclysm, new edition, trade paperback, 42% off, only $17.39. Nightwing, Volume 2, the original series, Rough Justice, 42% off, only $11.59. And I'm a big fan of that original Nightwing series. Bodies. I really enjoyed this series from Vertigo. That trade paperback is 42% off, only $9.85. And that's a great way to read Vertigo titles if you don't have time to necessarily put that in your regular pull schedule. Vertigo titles read very, very well in trade paperback and hardcover form. I honestly think they're designed in arcs specifically for that purpose. I know that's always been kind of a Vertigo thing. They're a bookshelf imprint. And the reason why that they often publish in story arcs of 6 issues or roughly that is to put them out in trade paperbacks and hardcovers to reach a different sort of market that way. And they read very well that way, so I just wanted to shout out Bodies as well. That's dcbservice.com and instocktrades.com. Our next episode, Jim and I are going to continue talking some of the new status quos and new releases coming out of DC. It's been a very cool month. We've still got more books from week 1 and 2 to discuss, but we're also going to have week 3 now to be put on the list, and more books coming our way in this continued status quo change from DC. Please keep in mind to use our voicemail line. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Are you digging what they're doing or not? And I'd love to hear why. That is always of interest to me. I like hearing people's thought process. What does all this mean to you? You know, I want to hear why you love it if you're loving it. I want to know why you're in the middle if you're in the middle. I want to know why you're disliking it if you are. Those things interest me because that's more important to me than where you're falling. I'm interested in the why because that's the discussion points. What is it about the events that are hitting you or not? So, love to hear you talk about that, and we will see you next week.
Bye!
On November 13th, Sean Whalen was asked to stop constantly talking about comic books. That request came from his wife. Deep down, he knew she was right, but he also knew that someday he would find someone that would talk to him. With nowhere else to go, he appeared at the home of his childhood friend Jim Segulin. Sometime earlier, Segulin's boss had requested that he shut up about his comic books and never speak of them again. Can 2 grown men put out a DC Comics podcast without driving each other crazy? It's Raging Bullets, the DC Comics fan podcast. With Sean Whalen as Dr. Norge, and Jim Segulin as the Sensei of the Whatnot and the Duke of You-Know. It's a spoiler podcast, so they will go in depth into the plot line, story twists, and whatnot of the comics they are reviewing. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you may better enjoy the show.